Welcome to City Chapters Podcast. I'm your host, Bobby J. Today we got Thomas Ghezzi, aka T. T is a full-time lecturer at EWU, a quarterly adjunct at SCC, a freelance writer for Out There Outdoor magazine, and the Ghostface of Wild Cannons. It's a pleasure to have you here, brother.
Pleasure to be here.
And me and T, we met through soccer. I've met quite a bit of people on this podcast through. So that's how me and T got to know each other, playing some soccer. Then I found out he was the ghost face behind Wild Cannons because big into the snowboarding community and I had seen their stuff around. And we just got to talking. We've done some snowboarding together now. And, he showed me some things out there in the mountains that I appreciate him showing me, man. And
secret spots.
And he's involved in the community a lot, and I just thought it would be great to have him on. So, T, how you doing today, man?
So good, my dog.
So good, my dog. Yeah.
No, I'm doing good. I'm really excited for this.
Yeah.
Really excited for this.
Yeah, man. So let's. I'm excited too. I like your energy, man. From the time I met you, and just having another homie on this pod that's fucking in love with snowboarding like I am. Obviously my passion came out, sorry for the F word, but that's how I feel about snowboarding. I get excited about it. So
no, you're a passionate guy. I like that. So energy is something that the feel like Shane, same way.
Yeah.
I've been on the podcast before. His energy, snowboarding, coffee, lots of stuff. Soccer got him to play like on a co-ed team.
Yeah.
So sorry, Shane, last season, but team wasn't that good. But same energy that I got off you from when we first met. That passion that you had, just even for soccer with that, the competitiveness. Mm-hmm. We were playing on a good team. There was not always spots for us to be playing. I'm on the older end of that team, so I'm okay sometimes with not playing.
Yeah.
But getting to know you through that, and then hearing their messages, checking out each other's Instagram, and then finally meeting up this year on the mountain.
Yeah, man, that was an awesome day that we met on the mountain that time, and I appreciate you, showing me some zones, man.
Yeah, for sure. Trying to think of like the word to say that I describe it, but I'm very picky with who I ride with.
Yeah.
Snowboarding is my outlet. Soccer was like everything to me. And then as it kind of transferred into later on in life, not playing as much or not being able to play because of injuries, snowboarding became really personal. Mm-hmm. And I rode a lot on my own and then got into the backcountry. And then here even there's some spots that, I only want certain people to go to, because of their ability. There's people that shouldn't be back where we're riding. Yeah. And just the knowledge as well. And after kind of grouping up, I was like, all right. Finally met up. Was it midway?
Yeah. Well, we were at the bottom.
Bottom of chair 4. And you're like, let's go. And I was like, we're going to head back here. And you're like, I'm down. I was like, all right. We'll show you some good stuff. And then you can just explore from there on. Yeah. Which I think is nice. With that, you give them a little taste and then get you into
we've definitely, I've been exploring back there
I've seen
bunch now.
Seen back there. And then little pockets, inbounds like last weekend. Mm-hmm. Little areas that don't have names that we just make up. Like the living room is like a fun one. It's kind of tucked in. It can be a couple days afterwards, and you get 200 fresh feet of snow in one little pocket, and another 200. So you're like, oh, sweet. Yeah. It's untouched. Few big slashes. But you're getting down.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm getting them. I mean, I don't know. I like, honestly, for me, I feel like my snowboarding experience is really like almost just starting in a lot of ways. Like I've been riding since I was 6, but my obsession with snowboarding over the last few seasons, especially last season, like that was the first time I started throwing backflips and wildcats and like all that. Like I was 32, mm-hmm. And I'd tried them before, but I was never very successful, and now it's like just like my addiction to the progression in snowboarding and like finding a crew or like a few homies that I can ride with. I ride with my brother a lot, And I'm super thankful to have him because me and him just like we mesh together in our skill, you know, and like we're pushing each other. But you know, finding people like you and Ryan to ride with, like, it just makes a day that much better. And like, honestly, like, I feel like I can keep up with the best of them as far as riding goes. Like, but tricks, I'm trying to progress for the, you know, the window that I have before it's more just surfing, you know, and then extend that as long as I can
That's
too.
where you
But
get to me. That's when you're just
yeah,
looking, your turns feel amazing.
yeah,
And you're starting to get that already. So you combine both.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I know you can hustle in there. I mean, we weren't waiting around
yeah,
for you guys, and
no,
yeah, no, you're there. So that's no, I think that, you know, just that spark, having the energy to come back, find that passion again, and then just evaluate where you're at. And that was what I had to do multiple times with soccer and snowboarding. To be like, if I want to keep doing this, I have to do it a different way than what I originally did.
yeah. And I mean, I love soccer, but I do not love it like I love snowboarding. I love snowboarding so much, man. And I'm like just so happy to be in that addiction again, because I've had that before with it. But me being sober over the last year and a quarter is really a big reason that I've been able to like really lock in, do my avalanche training this year, my wilderness first aid training, because I'm putting all my money into snowboarding. And like, and as much as like, yeah, like the tricks and stuff, really where I want to be is doing big backcountry stuff, you know, like that's that whole thing of me getting into that this year. Like my addiction in that world is just like, oh man, I can't wait to see what I can do there and who I can go out with. And like the other thing too is like, you know, riding with riders. Cause when it's me and my brother, like it's just our style, our way, you know. And yeah, we can pick up some things we see online, but there's a difference when you ride with other people that have other styles and ways that can push you and think differently about what you're doing, you know? And so like when I ride with you and Ryan, I'm watching things and I'm seeing, because a lot of times I'm the leader in my crew, whoever's riding with us, it's like naturally people like let me lead, you know? Because I'm like, I know where I want to go. I know the zones, the lines, like, but then I meet other people and they know other zones I don't. And I don't mind like stepping back. Like I'm going to follow, man. Like I want to see where they go and what they do. And I think that's like important in life, but also, you know, huge in snowboarding too. Like you don't always want to be the guy that's leading at all times, because like when you get to follow, you see things you want to have done, you know, like, oh, I see he looked at that differently than I would have looked at it. So, okay, like, then that's a shift in perspective, you know? And we could just go about snowboarding all podcasts, really. But we won't do that to you. We'll get into, we're going to come back to it. So for the snowboarders and outdoorsmen like that love the snow, like we'll come back to it, but let's get to your backstory, man. Where were you born?
All right. Yeah. So I was born in Spokane.
All right.
I grew up in Spokane. How about, well, also say I got the name T. So my dad's Filipino Italian.
Okay.
And he came to the States when he was 8. And so I kept the birth name. So he wanted Thomas. So named after him. He's senior, I'm junior. My mom's maiden name was Tiemann. My grandfather went by T his whole life. And I was the first male on that side of the family. So my dad was like, all right, birth name, Thomas, got to keep family name.
Yeah.
But we'll call him T. So that's all I've ever been called, ever. So as much trouble or as much success as I've had, T's the only thing I've ever gone by. And I spell it just T period.
Yeah.
I put a period, and my mom's like, I don't know where you got that from.
Yeah.
But you started doing it. And she taught first and second grade for like 25 plus years. And she was like, you just run with it.
Yeah.
But T's what I go by. And I teach right now at Eastern. Students call me T.
Yeah.
So that's how I want to be addressed, and will continue to be addressed. Grew up in Spokane. My parents super hippies. My dad was like the jock with like the long hair kind of guy. Mom had super long hair, you know, the bell bottoms, all of it. They moved to Eugene for work. They also had a little side hustle on that. Let's kind of leave it there with the imagination of what goes on.
You can guess, being in Eugene. Yeah.
So they did pretty well for themselves. Moved back, doing the same work. Parents split up at a young age.
So were you in Eugene with them?
Yeah, I was in Eugene with them.
Okay.
We moved back and started going first grade, kindergarten here in Spokane, so it wasn't a long time.
Yeah.
So Spokane's always been home
Home.
to me. Grew up on the South Hill. Grew up on Browns Mountain. And it was kind of one of those things where I'd say, oh, I live on Browns Mountain. People are like, oh, you have a big home. And I was like, no, actually, I don't. Like, I grew up in
Is Browns Mountain the mountain that's off of, like, if you're going up Freya, it's off to the left, kind of where the
yeah. It kind of looks like where the towers. It's right before Tower Mountain.
Right. Kind of, okay, I know that zone. All right.
So a very privileged area. My parents bought a house. It was an old carriage house. So Brown's estate actually had a big mansion there. And you would drive in, and when you would exit, that's where they would park the buggies, like the horse and buggy. So I grew up in that house. And I grew up with my mom, single, parent. So I literally had to walk through my mom's bedroom to get to my bedroom. So nothing that I thought was weird until like about high school when my friends were saying that. And I was like, actually, that is kind of weird. But nobody made it
you
weird.
had to walk through your mom's bedroom?
I had to walk through my mom's bedroom
to get to
my bedroom.
Okay.
And so really small house. When I would say like where I lived, people would be like, oh, you got this big home, like you got money. And I was like, no, my mom's a school teacher and I live in a tiny house. And people's garages are literally bigger than the house I grew up in. But we had a lot of property, so that was like the bonus.
Yeah.
And we had the mountains, so I got to run around. Like I was always on my bike, with the neighborhood kids. So I grew up, I think, privileged. And that way my mom never made it seem like we didn't have anything. Like our house flooded one year. So we had to run a shop vac like all, the whole year during the winter. Well, it was wet. Our garage was like, we never used, was just like storage. And that's where the washer and dryer were. So we had to like walk out to do, laundry. We had to keep a light on so the pipes wouldn't freeze. There's things like that I grew up with, in this really privileged where a lot of, rich families lived. And my mom didn't, she just made it. She was awesome about that. She made it seem like we had everything like the Jeffersons, or the Joneses had. She did a really good job with that. My dad, supported me financially. He lived in Spokane for a bit, but then took off to Seattle. So he was still involved, but like I didn't have that nucleus.
Yeah,
didn't
from
have
a
that
distance,
nucleus.
basically.
Didn't have that, yeah. And he was real hard on me, especially being, a foreigner and wanting better for his son. So that was pretty hard on me as well. But grew up playing soccer. Started playing when I was 6. Got a core group of guys. Played for the Falcons. So other people either loved you or hated you.
Yeah.
Manny Fridney was my coach. Same thing. People loved or hated him. He taught me a lot of life lessons. Took me in, like I lived in their guest house when I was younger. So great experience with him. I know people look down on him, but his goal was our goal. And he said, if you guys want to play college soccer, then play for me.
Yeah.
And I started playing with his son. He and I were friends. We're the same grade, but he was a year age-wise, like older. He was 79. I was 80th birthday. And the way it would swing during the seasons, they would have to play like with 78s. And U Sports wouldn't let us play older. So we ended up moving to the Valley. So at that time, I was about 8 years old. I started playing 2 years older. By the time I was in 6th grade, and we took second when I was in 5th grade in state. 6th grade, we took first in state. So we were pretty primed. Played ODP growing up for Washington's Olympic team on the east side. Played a year older my first year. So that was like my life. Soccer was basically kept me out of a lot of trouble when I was young, and then even more so going into high school. And started snowboarding around, it was like, I think it was in 5th grade when I first started kind of figuring things out. Bought a snowboard from this kid that moved to California. I had never been on one. Remember when my dad took me skiing at 49 and I had to sign paperwork there and watch this video saying that I knew how to snowboard, and I had no clue how to snowboard. And basically just like, as they say, like a missile going down the mountain. And he's like 2 runs on the bunny hill and we're going up top. Didn't see a single snowboarder the whole day.
Yeah.
And I was just, bombing it, falling, getting up, bombing, falling, going, and fell in love with it. About time 7th grade rolled around, went to Sacagawea. There was a bunch of kids that were skaters, and I was like, oh my gosh, like these are my people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I found that crew, found people that were snowboarders, and then that just carried on into high school, where then you had seniors that had cars that could take you up, and all the extracurricular that goes on with
for sure.
That culture was I dove in pretty deep going into 7th grade.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like that in a nutshell. I don't know if you want to keep going of like where, where that kind of took from there, but that's kind of the cliff notes of
so you're get into soccer very young, snowboarding very young. So what happens through high school as far as like soccer career,
Yeah.
snowboarding?
So snowboarding, I was progressing really quick, and I basically chose or was able to snowboard because that was the only time we didn't have like season. I was playing all year round. We had club in fall. During the winter, we could play indoor, but that's where
Yeah.
snowboarding would shine.
Yeah.
My coach didn't want me skateboarding because, you know, just of getting hurt.
Yeah.
So then I just put base of my energy into the winter. Spring, we had high school. We also had ODP, and then you had ODP through the summer. So
What is ODP?
so it's Olympic Developmental Program.
Okay.
It's EDP now. Is what they've changed it to, and I don't even know what that stands for. But basically, take all the best kids for your age group and our best kids,
Yeah.
ones that could afford it. So I had to get like
Yeah.
scholarships or like sponsors. So I'd go around with these flyers saying like, "Can you help me pay for travel?" So that was the only way I could afford it. Same with club. I had to like sell. I sold all the most random stuff.
Yeah.
I had to like start hustling. But high school, I had made varsity as a freshman. And so I was super pumped on that with my buddies. And there's like 5 of us that, you know, we grew up playing since we were like 8 years old.
Yeah.
And it's about this time. It was right before March. So the week I made it, I went snowboarding up in Whitewater and broke my leg.
Ooh.
So I broke it in like 13 places, hit growth plates.
What?
Yeah, it was like the size of a watermelon. Took me like 2 days before I could actually go in and have surgery. They put a cast on me to try to keep the swelling down. And Dr. Cody, for those that have had any surgeries, he was my orthopedic. I was one of his first patients. Man, it was gnarly. So I was sitting in there, and again, having a dad who was like, "Oh, you know, like you couldn't cry. Like that was just word. You don't cry from pain. No, you know, none of that." So this whole time, and you know, don't cry, none of that. We're in there. I asked the doctor, "Am I going to be able to play by the end of the season?" He's like, "I don't know if you're ever going to play soccer again or snowboard again."
Yeah.
He's like, "Let's just start with getting you fixed."
Yeah.
So they put a, you know, successful surgery. They had to put a bunch of metal in me. Mm-hmm. Devastated. I remember I was crying before in the, you know, in the room when he's telling me that you're not going to be able to play. So I was like, one step at a time, right? Get fixed and then see if you can play. And I had to sit for close to a year for everything to heal up. And then I came back and played. So it took me a while to get back because you figure everyone's growing at that time. They're excelling a lot.
Yeah.
So it took me a while to get back. Got back, was able to play like my sophomore year. Junior year, I peaked, started putting on weight. Was playing really well, was strong, dedicated to soccer, and it was fabulous. So I was thinking my buddies were talking about going to UW, you know, Gonzaga, all these places. Like, well, might not be able to get a full ride, but that was like my goal was to play Division I soccer, and everything was trending that way. So during these ODP, we'd play in Moses Lake. That's where we would train every Sunday. Then we'd play tournaments like in Portland, and you go around Seattle for a few, and you'd play other states. Then you have 1 week, and they called it regional camp. So it was our region. We would all go play. And so you play for that week. If you make it, if you make the regional team, then you get to go another week. So I was able to play, and I never made it, like summer after summer. And then finally was able to, you know, asked to make the pool. So I made the pool, but I never got picked for that next week. So I was always really close. And I actually got to play my own age, so I thought I should make it. But it just never hit for me. But I was still riding high, had good conversations, good recruit trips. And senior year rolls around, hadn't made a decision where to go. And it was winter time. And they, you know, a lot of people had already had their picks to what college they wanted to go. And I was going to try to walk on or have partial scholarship at UW and playing indoor, tore my ACL, and done. So that was pretty heartbreaking, especially my junior year. We took second in state. So we're ramped up to win my senior year. So my senior year I played with the torn ACL because either way I would have to sit. So I couldn't play college ball, and I could either have surgery then or I could wait till the season. So I played with it torn my senior year. Ended up going to community college, which I did not want to do at all. So I had to sit the full year. I was like, I'm going to have to go to the community college. Did that. Was playing too early probably. Hit knee on knee. Broke my kneecap.
Damn.
So that kind of set me back. So then officially I was like, okay, now what do I do? And my doctor's like, maybe you shouldn't be playing anymore. And I was like, I'm going to keep doing it. So I ended up playing at the community college.
Yeah.
And they supported me really well.
At SF, right?
Yeah, SF. So I went to the Falls, but they combined as one team. And I actually loved it. I really liked my coach. The guys I was playing with, though, that was tough at first because there were a lot of guys that did not like me from just playing against them. And so I didn't
bring in club beef.
Club beef, high school beef. We're the first team for high school, and it's like I feel like that guy is like, oh, when I was in high school, I threw this football over the mountain kind of story. But we were the first team from Eastern Washington to win state for.
Where'd you play at?
At Ferris.
Ferris. That's what I figured. Being at Brown Hill, right? But
so there was that. So I kind of came in with a chip on my shoulder anyway. Didn't have a lot of friends at first, and then I made some amazing friends, and the team was dope. They were so good, and our team if we would have had two teams, they probably would have been one of the best teams in the league. So it was real unfortunate the guys that weren't playing, and I found my home playing defensive mid there, which is kind of where I was comfortable anyway, and it was awesome. So I had a great time, was looking to move on, almost went to Oregon State. I was like, I'm going to stay and see if I can get something that's a better fit for my style of play, and decided after my second year of playing, I was going to go to Western Washington. Went over there, get hurt right before tryouts. So broken kneecap. So I broke both kneecaps. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Had to sit.
Holy smokes.
And so I had 7 knee surgeries before I was 30. And so I was over there. Yeah. So I was over there, registered for school, planning on playing soccer. Not going down. I buy a season pass to Mount Baker. I start working at Little Caesars Pizza and slanging beers. And I was like, well, I'm just going to snowboard.
Hell yeah.
So I didn't tell my mom. And winter comes around. She's like, how are your classes going? And I was like, well, I got a great education in the backcountry. And she was like, what do you mean? And I was like, I dropped out of school. And she flipped.
Yeah.
So, that's what kind of took me into really learning about the backcountry and wanting to ride powder. And my soccer dreams were kind of shelved at that point.
Yeah, I would say so.
That opened up a lot of demons through, I know we kind of talked about mental health on here.
Oh, yeah.
But I found, like, looking back, the process that I was going through in my recovery was not healthy. So physically I was, but mentally, it put a pretty dark cloud on me.
Man, mentally, I struggle mentally a lot from trauma I've experienced, whether it's injuries or like they're all injuries, varying of different sorts, right? But it is difficult mentally to recover, especially like when you feel things were taken from you or you made a mistake that's gonna, jeopardize your dreams. So it can be hard to deal with your mind and yourself sometimes. So I want to go back though. We just breezed over, you shattered your leg. Where at? In the femur or?
Yeah, it was high femur I basically broke every major bone that you had. And it was
just like everywhere in the leg, but
you
had
all around
femur breaks too.
Yeah, so the top of my femur, that's where the growth plates, and then down below, whatever, I can't remember those.
How did this happen, bro? Like what?
So we're at Whitewater.
Yeah.
It was we were up there for a weekend. I was with one of my best friends, and we rode there a couple years, so we knew quite a few drops there. Yeah. And there was one that we were hitting, it was like this Hollywood one, it was about 20 feet, and we were riding it most of the weekend, and the snow got wet. And we were off kind of hiking around, and we came back, and it was like one of the last runs of the day, and we're like, oh, let's just send it like one last time. And sent it, landed flat.
On the flats?
On the flat, yeah. Oof. So I didn't land on the down. Yeah. And it was just like concrete. And so I actually landed, but my front leg just couldn't take it.
And it was all pack.
Yeah. So I'm whimpering and pushing myself, and I rode switch down to the rest of to the bottom. And then I limped, and
you were able to ride?
Yeah, so I rode out. So every time I've been hurt, like I
do that too. I'll get myself to where I need to and then collapse, basically.
Yeah, so that's like So when I broke my kneecap was during like the other one. Yeah. It was at a rail at Mount Spokane. And so I rode all the way down. I tore my other ACL later in life, going into flat at Mount Spokane. And both times I just went to the lodge and just like out. But yeah, the Whitewater one, got to the bottom. the team down there, ski patrol, was like, we need to get you out of here because
Yeah.
it was massive.
Yeah,
And so I rode in the back of a Subaru down to the hospital down there.
and Nelson.
And my dad had to come down, and they were in like this big party bus, so everyone was waiting for him. It was all my dad and his buddies.
Whew.
Yeah, it was a long ride back to
doubt.
Spokane. I was by the cooler. I was underage, but I was by the cooler.
Yeah.
They were well prepared
Yeah.
for the ride. Yeah, it was devastating.
Yeah.
In the end. But yeah, so that's why like there's times with the peaks and valleys of snowboarding for me. I don't hit a lot of park jumps anymore because of my knees.
Yeah.
And
for
just
sure.
airing and just happy to be up riding.
Yeah.
And that's where I start talking about what was snowboarding to me at that time. And when I was like 16, 17, I was throwing fives. And at that time, that was kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
When 720s and 900s, like Mount Spokane's terrain park, I wrote about this in one of my articles, but for out there, their park was right next to the lodge. And they had 2 blue barrels. They had this yellow shotgun rail that was about the length of your board that like kinked left at the end just because it was, who knows where they got it from.
Yeah.
And they had a 4x6, and that was like it. So if you could clear the barrels like that, and that was cool. If you were throwing 3s over the barrel, like you were like, something.
Yeah.
And then kids were throwing 5s, and then you'd see some of these like roll dogs coming up with their 7s, and eyes were just blown. But they called it a snowboard park because skiers weren't able to go in it.
Right.
And we threw some fists. Down there, skiers coming through, and it was like when the skiers hated the snowboarders.
For sure.
It was a little bit of fun, but there was a lot of growing up to
I
do.
snowboarded in the beginning of that. Well, in that era, I was still in that, I don't know, probably until I was like, I would say, it probably kind of really existed for me all the way through high school. But when I started riding snowboarding was like 95 probably. And,
so you were, it was still, it was definitely
they
still
didn't,
there.
Full grown men skiing, yelling at me.
Oh, yeah.
Cause I'm a snowboarder. Like, okay, dude.
Yeah. I saw a guy with a baseball bat, my buddy, with a pole, and I was like,
Yeah.
and it was literally, you're dropping gloves.
Oh yeah. There were some things that definitely went on for us too. Like,
Wild days.
people that would, say something to us, we'd like mark them and then find them later on a run and do something. Like whether it was just spraying them or like doing something, right? Just to mess with them for sure.
No, that was definitely part of the culture at that time. I'm glad it's actually gone away from it.
Yeah, I ride with skiers often now.
My best friend, he grew up, was a skier.
Yeah.
But still, when your skis go on the back of my board, man, like, apologies. Otherwise, it just ruffled. My fuse is shorter on the mountain than probably anywhere with people just being jerks. Snowboarders included. Like, it's just like if you're doing something that you shouldn't be doing, like you're gonna hear from me.
I know. I had I that's exactly right. I've been talking about this with friends. Like I will get boisterous on the mountain if you're doing something that's like, what are you doing?
Yeah, you're gonna hurt somebody.
You're putting yourself in danger. Like I watched this little kid hit like a 35-foot kicker. He attempted. He was like 6 years old. You know what I mean? Like 4 feet maybe. And like literally probably weighed 70 pounds. You know what I mean? Like literally he does not have the weight capacity to make this jump, but he's all by himself. He thinks he could do it in his head. He just like disappears over this massive kicker. I got to go around there and like pick him up and be like, dude, you literally don't weigh enough, little bro. Yeah. He's like, oh, like he didn't know, you know what I mean? But like he didn't.
Is good.
Yeah. It's like, you got to start small, work your way up, but also you got to get bigger, man. You're not big enough.
Yeah. You just don't
and that's actually not even a bad situation. More as it's just a young kid who's like wants to try something he's not ready for. He doesn't know that yet though.
But you just going up and doing that is great. Like in the surf world, they call it like a reef chief, like the person. Then for that kind of sometimes falls on me. Like Silver Mountain has one. There's a corner where everyone waits, and it drives me nuts. That's like one of them. Or people that don't look back before they drop, especially if you're coming in hot, they just like take off. It's like little things like that. It's the etiquette that we didn't really learn so much in the snowboard world. which I feel like people should know at least now.
Yeah.
And more just to tell them first, and then.
Well, and I mean, this is something that goes in a lot of walks of life, but like one specifically is gun safety. I remember being a kid, we were shooting in this, like, I was in Royal Rangers. This is like Christian Boy Scouts, basically.
Royal Rangers.
Yeah,
You
basically
sound dangerous.
a cult, a militia. I was in a militia, Pentecostal militia.
You seem
All
like
right.
on that button.
They were training me to shoot muskets and everything by the time I was 5. Like, it's out in Medical Lake, old country boys, you know? So I'm playing it up as the militia thing, but because it's funny. But we were out shooting one time, and we were shooting pigeons, clay pigeons, and I like got a good shot off and like swung around the shotgun, you know, and was like, oh yeah, you know, like excited. But this guy, the instructor, like grabbed me so quick, grabbed my arm, somehow took the gun, and then like just yelled at me like, you never swing a gun around like that ever. You always keep it down range. You know, he said what he needed to say, and he said it very curtly and aggressively. I never forgot that, ever. That moment stuck with me the rest of my life and how I approach gun safety, you know? And if it wasn't for him being so stern and aggressive with me, it would not have cut in as deep as it did. You know, I cried afterwards because it like hurt, you know, the way he grabbed me hurt, the way he yelled at me hurt in front of everybody. You know, I was a little kid. I'm like, my feelings were hurt, but I also knew he was right, you know? And so I think when it comes to mountain etiquette and stuff, like some people aren't thinking. A lot of people just, I hate to say it, but it's just how I see it. People are not thinking out there. They're just beat bopping around, just in the way, doing stuff that's honestly just ridiculous. And if you don't say something to them, because I honestly think most of those people aren't doing it intentionally because they're just not practicing awareness. So you have to bring them to awareness essentially, like, and you have to do it in a way that's kind of curt. And I used to look at people like, oh, you're being an asshole, but I don't really see it that way in certain circumstances, because it's like you need to do it in a manner for this person to remember what they're doing and why they shouldn't be doing that anymore, you know? And some people are going to be whatever, you know, but most people are going to be like, oh, damn, like I am doing that. I shouldn't be in the way like this. Or the one that kills me is like you're coming over a blind hill, and there's people on the other side it's like, yo, I'll yell at those kids, bad spot, yo, get out the way. Like there was a cat that I hit recently. I hit this cat fat, and these kids were down there just what are you doing there, dude?
Yeah, it's blind.
Yeah, it's blind spot. I almost landed on him, like, you know.
Yep.
Yeah, so
it's hard. Yeah, it's hard for me to keep my tongue. It's just dangerous, right? So we're looking out for safety, but then it's the opposite, right? So like you have that reef chief kind of mentality, but then also when you see, like you're talking about like a kid in that sense, like if we see someone go down or they need help, even like if an adult, like if they're kind of struggling through the cat track or something, if we can give them like some sort of advice too, like if you're in that space to be like, hey man, like maybe try this, or we saw like somebody crash like pretty bad, you know, it's like you always laugh like, oh dude, that dude just tomahawked, or like scorpion, and like he's not moving. So just like also then checking up on him, and that's something I've done more as I've gotten older, because there's been some times where I've had some wicked crashes and nobody comes to see if I'm okay. And that's where I'm like, how do you build that culture in? You have to be able to like bring them up and not just kind of bring them down in those areas.
Yeah, no doubt. To go on that topic, like I always check on somebody if I see that they wrecked good, you know, or if they're like, one thing with snowboarders that I'll help them with is like if they're like stuck, or like they get themselves stuck in powder and they're like trying to like unstrap a foot, I'll just go by, unstrap a foot. You know, like get out of your board or unstrap fully, whatever, you know, it is in the situation. But you'll see people trying to do things because they haven't seen or been taught like, oh, this little trick will help you get through this situation a lot easier. So yeah, helping people on the mountain, I think is and I don't care if skier or not. Like if I see a skier lose a ski and I'm uphill, I'm bringing the ski to him.
Yep.
You know, like I'm not
Agreed.
gonna be. I can't stand people that are just dicks on the mountain just to be dicks, and that's just like in life too.
And they're the ones that are like that in real life too. It's like,
Yeah,
get out of here.
exactly. But I don't know. I get in that. I like this conversation here because I think a lot of people stay quiet about things with people where they want to say something when somebody's doing something that isn't proper etiquette, you know, but we don't want to offend nobody, even though what they're doing is offensive to others, you know, or dangerous to others. But we want to be quiet because, oh, who am I to confront this situation? You know, because a lot of us want to hide away from confrontation. And even though you're trying to do something that's going to benefit others, or, you know, it's like this weird thing of confrontation is negative, you know, and I've had to work through that because my confrontation has been very aggressive in my past, and it's led me to being locked up. It's led to people being severely hurt, me getting hurt, me, you know, all sorts of, you know, violence essentially is how my mind for a long time understood confrontation.
Right.
Like confrontation means violence. Like I'm going to confront you. If you want a problem with that, we can go wherever we want to go with that. And that's my younger mentality. Now that I'm older, I see like the value of confrontation in a way that's like, I'm not confronting anybody to like, yo, I will mess you up. Like,
It's not backed by your ego, basically. Your ego's
well, it's still there, and I'm working through it. But
Yeah.
the essence of my purpose in confronting somebody isn't to have the ego and stuff present, but it always is. So I have to work through that because I do have that nature still about me where, like, if somebody does something in a moment I don't like and I snap like that, I can revert to being like, I'll mess this person up right now. Like, you know,
that's
and
hard. That's
it's
your nature. It's hard to turn that off.
it's really
'Cause I've
hard.
been able to tone that down.
Me too,
over
but
time,
it's still got work to do on it, right?
Yep.
And it's like night and day compared to who I used to be and how I used to react. Like way, way, way better.
So is your dad that way?
Oh yeah.
So
My dad has never been able to. I mean, now he's older. He's 80, so he's a lot softer. But yeah, he had major anger issues and no patience with dealing with life. And life just would agitate him in a moment, and he would just go into rages, and it affected me
Yeah.
a lot. And I've worked really, really hard to try to wash that out of me. And it's gonna probably be a life work, you know, but I'm trying, and I have made immense progress in that world. But yeah,
So
for sure.
there's parallels. My dad was the same way. Especially growing up. My dad's really dark skinned as well. So like my mom's very fair. She has like red hair and light skin. So
Yeah.
so I don't really look like it. But I remember growing up and we had a Blake place, or we still have a Blake place on Ponderay, but going there and we're in the town of Rathdrum, not to pick on Rathdrum, but I remember a few times the racial slurs, and this was all over the board, that I don't want to say, but it was words I'd never heard before. And I'd seen my dad like get in a gas station, like be verbally, you know, attacked by a guy, and where they're just, you know, throwing down in the gas station. I'm a kid in the car.
Yeah.
And the guy, you know, someone's going to go to my dad, racially, you know, attack him. And my dad just, he had such a short temper. But there was a few times I saw him like, you know, just get down. And I was kind of like scared as some of that as a kid. And then as I got older, I was like, man, I'm doing the same thing that he's doing. And I caught it a little bit like early, I think maybe than, you know, like where you're at. But it was hard. It was really hard to like, how do I turn that off? What are the good things that my dad gave me? You know, some of that's that work ethic, you know, just be able to grind stuff out.
Yeah.
Like he definitely gave that to me. But then the side of like, where's that fuse at? What's causing this fuse to ignite so fast? How do I tame that down? And it took me a long time. And there's times where it's still. And soccer field, I've actually been able to pretty chill that out.
Yeah.
Snowboarding, there's times where it just powder keg
Yeah.
just goes off.
Yeah. I haven't really got super angry on the mountain, but I definitely in a moment will let somebody know they're doing something that's not right, you know.
Yeah.
But my anger on the soccer field though can be a problem for sure.
That's where I've seen that.
Yeah, oh,
I like to call it that passion come out.
yeah. I got a lot of passion in soccer sometimes, man.
Mm-hmm.
But mainly that's because someone's doing something reckless on the field with me and I ain't having it.
Yeah. Our teammate.
Yeah, or a teammate just like, what, bro? We're on the same team. What are we doing here? And I don't deal well with disrespect, you know, or deal well with like reckless behavior that's gonna endanger me because we're playing a competitive game. But when you're taking it to a level where you're doing things that you're intentionally trying to hurt somebody,
Yeah.
like that's just not gonna fly okay with me. Like, and I don't personally believe that's part of the game. In my view of how the game should be played at the level we're playing at.
Right. We're not.
This is not Barclays. This is not World Cup.
We're not even beer league.
We're not even. Yeah, I mean, like this is like the lowest tier. I mean, let's just keep it real. But because it's that. The mentality, unfortunately, at those levels is all these guys just trying to find a way to validate their existence and making sure they feel a little bit above somebody else. So they use the most low level energy, and that is to try to belittle and hurt somebody else to make themselves feel more powerful than anybody else on the field. And that's like the low shit that just irritates me.
Oh yeah,
you know.
And that's like where I go back to like my younger self with that. Like when you think of like hockey and the enforcer, like I want to, especially I was always shorter, I was always younger, and my thing was I'm gonna hit you harder than you've ever been hit, like and clean. That was my thing. Like I want to slide tackle and I want to hit you. Like I'm not out to like hurt you by any means because that wasn't the style that we played. But being smaller, I knew one thing. I was like, if I can tackle hard, that forward, you know, or that midfielder is not going to want to come my way.
And that's a part of the game, though.
Yeah,
that's a part of the game. What I'm talking about is people doing things that's dirty.
The gamemanship that
they're playing dirty, and they're playing reckless. Slide tackling is a part of the game. You know, you can't get away from that. You know, but there are ways you can slide tackle that are wrong and right. You know, and like
that happens in our league.
And for sure, yeah.
Unfortunately.
I don't know. I like this topic. I like these topics surrounding, you know, confrontation in the world because I think that's really necessary. Like one thing that I'll do too is like if I'm at the gym and I'm in the sauna and someone comes in and they're like, open the door and they leave it open. Oh my God, it's hot in here. Yo, in or out? It's a sauna. It's supposed to be hot.
Yeah.
You're letting all the cold air in.
Yep.
Like you gotta educate. Like it is supposed to be hot, yo.
Yeah, and
so what are you leaving the door open for?
Respect for the people that are in there. It's having that conversation and communication with them and saying like, hey, like I'm not doing. Can I open the door? That's totally different than just leaving the door open. So that, to me, there's a lot of respect that goes in there, and people are just oblivious to that.
Yeah, and that's why. And that's like, I guess why it's a perfect example that would be maybe more relatable to more people in our snowboarding world is what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? And whether you don't know it or not, I've been in those situations where nobody else in the sauna says anything. I say it, that person either comes in or they go back out. And when they go back out, everybody was like, thank you, man. Like, everybody wanted to say it, but nobody did because they're scared of offending or hurting somebody's feelings. Yeah. And it's like, honestly, sometimes you need your feelings hurt. You need to be called out. Like, it's the only way that you're going to learn and hopefully gain awareness. For people that are very unaware, like, you know, being called out is going to bring awareness to you. And that's how I've gained a lot of awareness in my life, is because I've messed up a lot and I've had to go through a lot of hard lessons and be taught a lot of hard lessons. And so a simple confrontation like that can be a lesson to somebody. Like, damn, I wasn't even thinking about the others, or like, what I was really even doing, letting cold air into a sauna that's intended to maintain heat, you know? So,
It's that learning and growing. And then also like when you're the person, so that's the person that's, opening up the door. They learn and grow. And you
right.
think back on it, the people that you're speaking up for, and this is where I think maybe like where we pull this into like the community of like what you're doing with this, the people that you're working with, you're giving a voice to the voiceless. So sometimes people are scared to
Yeah.
step up and say that. So,
Yeah.
that just expands even more to the community of, if you're working with nonprofits, doing that sort of thing, that you are expanding not only just that little knowledge there, the people in that room, are knowing it, and then the person in with the door that's, leaving it open, hopefully grows from it.
Yeah.
But it's just kind of learning experience for everyone at the end of the day.
Yeah. I guess to close it up, because we've pretty well covered it, but it's, I think that it's a good thing in our community, and me and Joel talked about this a little bit. Like, people are just like too soft, in a lot of ways. And it's hurting our culture, it's hurting our communities, because we're not willing to kind of confront somebody when they're doing something wrong, and it's a hard thing because it can lead to something bad happening. If you confront the wrong person, something potentially could happen, right? Like a fight or whatever, but I mean, I feel like there's that middle ground of like confronting someone to make a point to them. And if they want to get hostile, in my head, I have to train myself like, I'm not doing that with you. I was just telling you because what you're doing is affecting others or something of that nature, whatever that situation is. But, in no way do I want to confront anybody so that I can get to a physical altercation with them. Like, that is not and I don't think that should ever be involved in like the concept of a confrontation in just society. You know what I mean? Like, it should be just about, we can't just allow people to just beat bop around doing whatever they want when it's causing potential harm to others in the community, essentially. And that's really what it comes down to, so.
It totally is. I agree with that. That's a good way to close it.
Yeah. All right. We'll close it there. We'll move on to something else. So we were talking about soccer. We went back. So you were working at Baker for a while. You dropped out of college.
So I didn't work up there. I just rode up there.
Just rode up there?
Yeah.
Oh, you were working at Little Caesars?
Yeah, I worked at Little Caesars Pizza.
Yeah, that's the gig, man. Pizza and snowboarding.
A little bar there that's not, I don't think it's open anymore. But yeah, I'd take like tubs of ranch home from my buddy. I never ate ranch with pizza before. But they wanted ranch on everything. So I'd bring like tubs home, bring pizza home, breadsticks all the time.
That's life.
I'd bike to work. So it was a good setup.
Yeah.
But then as my friends started, like they were getting close to graduating, I wasn't like going to school at all, partying way more than I needed to be. I was like, I'm not figuring it out. So I'm going to move back to Spokane. And then started working. I was coaching soccer, wasn't really paying the bills. And then I got a job working the restaurant at Luna.
At Luna?
Yeah.
Nice.
And that's how I kind of transitioned into that kind of life of working in the restaurant. I did everything there. I started as a dishwasher. I had a buddy that was the head chef. And yet I was like, hey, man, can you give me a job? And he's like, nope. I was like, hey, man, can you give me a job? He's like, nope. One day he's like, you want to wash dishes? And I was like, when do you need me? Then I started prepping, so I became a prep cook. We started working online. Then it was like 6 months in, they needed someone to. Busser didn't show up for the night, and I asked the chef. I was like, "Hey, can I ask the front of the house if I can, bus tables, make some more money?" He's like, "I don't care." So I did that. Did that for a couple months. Then the bartender was like, our lead bartender was like, "I don't want to bartend anymore." I was like, "I know how to bartend." I had no clue how to bartend in fine dining. So they trained me there, and then I worked in the bar on Friday, Saturday nights, Sunday off, and then I cooked. Basically pizzas are as part of the expo. So I worked doing that for like 3 years, and then just went straight to bartending. Got out of the kitchen, so I was making good money.
Yeah,
and I just wanted to
save
money. I just save money. I wanted to travel, and I wanted to snowboard. So that opened up my days to ride midweek. So I was riding a lot, saving money, traveling, went to like World Cup, traveled through Europe, and that just sparked my love for traveling and stayed in the restaurant business for a long time.
Yeah. Which World Cups did you go to?
I went to '06. I went to Germany.
Nice.
Yeah, that was amazing. So
Yeah.
Italy, Czech Republic play. Go Italy, even though we haven't made the World Cup. But and then I also saw Costa Rica, Ecuador. So we got to see 2 games, and that was my first time to Europe, and absolutely loved it. And I was like, gotta go back. So I've been back, and I've been back. So I've gone during the winter. So I've ridden the Swiss Alps twice, and Austrian Alps once, and then I'm back to Europe to visit a buddy during the summer just to hang out. And then we also went to Euro Cup in 2016, and got to see Portugal play. So I got to see Ronaldo play.
Yeah.
Which was insane.
Yeah.
And Charisma, who was like my favorite player, or still one of my favorite players. I got to see them play live, Ronaldo score. So it was good times, man. But yeah, traveling and then doing my 2 passions, watching soccer and then snowboarding. It's like, and I've been super lucky to travel, and I've caught in snowstorms every time I've been to Europe to ride. So I feel spoiled. I'm like, man, every time I'm like, I don't know if I should go back. Don't know if I should go back. But we went to Japan to ride, North Island, Hokkaido.
Yeah, Hokkaido.
Yeah, and we were late on the storm. We're kind of in the middle of the storm, but we still had phenomenal snow.
What was that like, man? Riding in that snow.
Dude, it's like the dry snow we have here, but a lot of it's the terrain, difference in terrain. It's real fingery there. And it's super deep too.
Deep, yeah.
But the lanes are fingery. It's all volcanic. So you have these pitches, so that it's steep, but for short amounts. So they kind of like have these levels. But the trees are wicked in there. And we had a guide for one day so we could get our bearings. And one of the mountains, I was the first one down. We had the sickest run. And he was like, how do you like it? And I was like, that was amazing. And I was like, what are those green leaves over there? Because I couldn't figure it out. We're waiting for those to come down. He's like, that's bamboo. I was like, what? I was like, it's green during the winter? And he's like, oh yeah, it's green the whole time.
Wow.
So that was wild. And then as the rest of the crew got down, they're like, how was it? And they're like, that was awesome. I was like, that one turn I had was probably worth like $400. Like that was amazing. So lucked out on all my trips traveling.
Is it true, like in Japan, that you have to have a guide the first day you go into the backcountry?
No.
I heard that,
so
something about like you have to have a guide.
We didn't hear that, but you normally have to pay for a pass to go out of bounds.
Oh, okay.
So it's depending on where you're at, you have to like say like you pay for an extra. I don't know how much the cost was, but basically you're paying to go out of bounds in case something happens. Sometimes their out of bounds is actually inbounds. So some of these valleys that they have, the mountains are massive, but it's all roped off inbounds, and you can't even see from the lift where the out of bounds because it's such a tight valley. But then you think of like what you've learned. If anything slides, there's no run out. So you're just in a drainage, and you're
terrain trap.
You're train trap for sure.
Yeah.
And then the trees there. So there's a lot of they don't ride in the trees because they would say that there was ghosts in there.
Right.
But where we were there, especially with our guide, he was so sick.
Yeah.
He was actually our bartender at the hostel we stayed at.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So we got to know him really well and picked his brain and learned a ton. But it's more in Europe where they're not riding like off piste, as they would say. That out of bounds, like it's groomed, and then there's like acres of fresh powder and nobody's riding it. And you're like, what is going on? Like, why aren't they riding it? I just want to ride groomers. So that's been more fascinating than I think riding in Japan.
Really?
With that of how much powder is out there and nobody was like
They
tearing
just
it up.
they just like groomers more.
Yeah,
The general
and saying that like
populace.
saying that more in general.
Yeah.
Or here it's like we have powder fever. We're like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, we got to get it.
Yeah.
There it's just but the mountain's way bigger too, so people get spread out. But that's always been the eye opener of like, how come people aren't riding this POW? Like we went to Locks. This it was 2000, so right before I almost got stuck over there with pandemic. And super sick mountain there, but they're known for their parks in spring, and it dumped. It was like feet for multiple feet of snow every day, and then it went sunny on the last day. But you're looking at all the tracks. You're like, where is everybody riding at? Like they should be riding this POW. We had it's like we had the mountain to ourselves.
Wow.
Restaurant business, sticking in that for a long time, opened up those doors for me to travel and have those experiences.
Yeah. Where, so Japan, Europe, anywhere else you've traveled to?
Just Costa Rica.
Costa Rica.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been there.
Yeah, we went down to I'm not a surfer, but we went down to surf was the idea in Tamarindo, and it rained the whole time and the water was flat. So
I've been to Tamarindo.
we hung out in the bars
Yeah.
and drank that Cacique Guaro, like the moonshine down there.
Yeah.
Got pretty sideways. Had a good time.
Yeah, I definitely let loose when I was down there for sure.
Fun place. Love it down there. I can see why so many people travel down there.
Yeah. Yeah, one of my homies, he lives down there now. He's lived there twice. He was there for, I don't know, like 5 years, moved back up here, and now he's been down there like at least probably another 5 years.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah. So, yeah, it was a cool place, man. I'd like to go back there for sure.
Me too.
I've only been to Ireland and Iceland, as far as like over that way.
Yeah.
But Japan and riding in Europe would be amazing. But Japan for sure.
I've been twice to Japan. It was my first international outside of Canada, Mexico. So my first big trip. I had a friend in the JET program, he was teaching English. Played an international soccer tournament with them over there. But the culture is so different from ours. And the train stations are just like unreal. They're like little cities. You got to go.
Yeah.
You got to go. You got to experience it.
Yeah.
But soaking up that culture for sure. And then the food in itself is so fun.
Man.
You know, ordering from like a vending machine looking thing, and then you go inside and your food's ready, or
Oh, wow.
the slurping that everyone's doing with their noodles.
Yeah.
And you'd be super tall. I felt tall there.
Yeah.
People aren't as short as we think they are. I'm not tall, so like most people are about my height. I'm like, they're not as short as everyone thinks. But
Yeah.
just learning like the difference of like we were talking about our culture of like giving people space. Let's say on the mountain, their spatial awareness is completely different. If you're waiting for the train, they're packed up. If there's a
Packing
line
in.
you're
Yeah.
right on top of each other. If you give any space, someone will cut in front of you.
Yeah.
And that's not disrespectful.
Yeah.
But at first I was like, what is going on? Like, I'm giving this dude room, and like one spot's going to make a difference. But as a whole, if you're trying to get on that train, one spot,
Makes
it adds up.
difference, yeah.
So little things like that.
I've heard that about Japan where like they're like they will cut you.
Oh, yeah,
They will cut you.
For sure.
If there's any space, like they're getting in it. So
For sure. And that's
Yeah.
it's little fun things like that.
yeah.
You got to go and go ride for sure.
Oh, yeah, that's where I want to go. I mean, I would love to experience Japanese culture too, because I've always been intrigued by it for sure. But just what I've seen as far as the writing and the powder, like just how it's so stellar and just so stacked. Like,
Oh my
and
gosh.
it's just like
It is. It's unreal.
going through a lightest pow ever.
Yeah. Yeah. We get snow. I feel like we get snow somewhat, like there's times, but it just
It doesn't
consistent.
last, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you figure like you're so far north in Hokkaido, and it's kind of like with Mount Baker in that sense. The ocean's just right there.
Yeah.
But it's so cold, it soaks up all the moisture. Mm-hmm. So it's coming over from like,
So it's wet. It's completely dry snow there.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you really need it to stack up. Mm-hmm. But those steep pitches, man, it's just a different terrain. So it feels so fun because you're like, oh, the trees look different.
Yeah,
and
everything's
seeing little
different.
things, and like the drops are just.
They don't have
set up.
evergreens. They're like birch almost, or not. I
Yeah,
don't know what it is.
I forgot the name. I forgot the name of them. I forgot the name of what they call the ghost. I know the smoke is called Zuko. But every time I've been, it's been after New Year's or like over New Year's was the last time we celebrated New Year's there. And for the full week afterwards, everyone goes to temple. So you get to see like girls in their traditional wear, which is really cool as well. Just and we start thinking about the respect. Like they'll cut you in line, but then they're super respectful in like other ways because that's their culture. Where we're like, oh man, but seeing all that and experiencing that time of year is like on another level, I think.
Yeah.
And both times I've been that same time of year and love it. And I'd tell anyone else to go that same time
Yeah.
to experience it all and stay as long as you can.
Jake
you
Rose
won't wanna
went
leave.
over there.
Yeah, so we
Yeah.
there was 4 of us that went on our snow. I went by myself like in 2005
Yeah.
to visit my buddy, and then we went think 2006, 17, 2016-ish. It was right around after I went back to Europe. And yeah, we had 4. Then we flew and hung out in Tokyo. Then we flew to Hokkaido just to save time. Otherwise, we'd have probably driven around. Because they have that area that's called the Japanese Alps, which would be really fun to check out. And that's where a lot of videos are shot as well. But yeah, they head north, and they have all the hot springs.
The hot springs
there.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Sounds
go.
amazing.
Now I want to go back. Chalk that one up for next year.
Oh.
Let me know if you want to go.
Oh, I want to go.
Because then
I like out of anywhere I want to ride, it's Japan. Honestly, like that is the place that most intrigues me to go ride. Like, because I've done a lot. There's a lot of places, but there's something that I know would be just like very special about going to Japan for me. So.
It is. So I tie this in when I ride like Warner Peak. So I call it my powder dojo. For those of you that don't know dojo, like look up the definition on it, and it's pretty rad when you think of it as like a place like where we snowboard. And I've said that like on my own like Instagram, and nobody ever pays attention to it, but so maybe this will get passed on. So yeah, I always give a little prayer and bow when we drop up there, just for myself, because I think that like that's like my happy place for that I find.
Dude,
there.
I can't lie. I was feeling a little underwhelmed with silver until I had been taking the measures to get myself to be able to go out of bounds safely and know what I'm getting myself into and doing all that. I think I had just completed my Avi training when I ran into you like the week before. And so then, we went back there, and that was my first time going back on Warner, because Warner kind of had this like,
especially after the avalanche,
especially that. So it was like always like I never wanted to go back there without having somebody show me. You took me up there, and that opened up a whole new way that I look at silver and the availability there for riding. And man, some of the things that I've found over the last few weeks of me just getting back there, man, I'm in like a whole new type of love with that zone and Warner, and like I've been using that Onyx backcountry app too, just to like figure out a lot of things just for like when I'm in the backcountry. But I'm like, oh, this is great for at the resort too. So I've been using it for resort riding and just figuring out where I want to go and how I would get back to a lift. So
yeah, that one on a board, it makes it tough. Silver was my least favorite mountain for a long time.
Yeah.
I always felt like I was like, there's too many damn cat tracks. It's just cat tracks and cat tracks.
Yeah.
Then you start figuring out how to link runs there. And you're like, oh man, there's these little pockets here and there that can be really fun. There's like hardly anybody there midweek, especially.
Yeah.
You start lacing those together and you're like, this is actually a really fun mountain. So I like when people are like, oh, I don't like it there. I'm like, yeah, it's cool, but stay away.
Yeah.
Because it's changed a lot in areas like the area, SOB or south of the border.
Yeah.
That was what, was called for years. Now it's opened up for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, it's getting pretty.
So there's days where stuff gets hammered out earlier, and you're like, "But we could go back here like a week later."
Yeah.
So same things with some of the areas that where we pulled you around, but eventually, especially with social media, these spots are going to get blown out. It's just if you can get there first, if you know different ways to get out, different entrances in. There's a few runs where we go like single file in to make it look like nobody's really gone in there.
Yeah.
And that kind of helps too. And you see tracks of like 5-6 people, you're like, oh, that's accessible.
Yeah.
I mean, you got one track going in there, like, who's that weirdo going in there? Like, that was us.
Yeah.
But yeah,
did he make it out is the question, Like,
yeah.
Well, it doesn't look like somebody should have went that way. That person was, you know. But if it's like you're doing the guys, yeah. And like obviously it's a big part of snowboard ski culture, like not letting people know where certain zones are, unless it's like somebody that you're cool with, like really cool with. So
you're cool. Yeah, like, you're cool. I found that with all the mountains. I've had passes at all of them for, over a decade. Riding with out there, we get one of the Ski Northwest Rockies passes that opens up more accessibility to mountains if I'm not buying a season pass there. I mean, there's obviously some blackout dates, but that, again, like I was just paying for season passes, and working at the restaurant allowed me to do that. Riding by myself a lot, I just started going one lane farther, checking stuff out, which, as I later learned, probably wasn't the best way to do it.
Yeah, it's a little risky, but
you kind of learn if, those that are skiers, if you've never seen Swift, Silent the Deep, it's about, and you should check it out too. It's my favorite ski movie ever. It's about the Jackson Hole Air Force, and they're the guys that really brought like this side country, backcountry, skiing to
what was it called again?
The Swift, Silent the Deep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Swift, Silent, the Deep.
It's eye-opening. And if you haven't been to Jackson Hole, for those that ski, and I've been quite a few mountains, around the world, the best skiers I've ever seen, Jackson Hole, Wyoming. Hands down. It's on another level. They absolutely rip. To me, Mount Baker has the core snowboarders of guys that can just do it all, and you're running into pros all the time that we don't even really recognize. It's like their stomping ground. You have that, and just like the old school Mount Baker hardcores, the guys that are just up there for the passion of it, that just are insanely good. Jackson Hole is that for skiers. We had a buddy that lived down there for like 10 years. He was on like the Fisher team, got, some flow gear. And I mean, trying to stay up with them, and it's insane how fast they ride.
Did you see that?
Humbling.
That TGR post of that 11-year-old girl that just threw that fat double backflip? Oh my! I thought I sent it to you.
No, I don't think so.
I didn't send it to you.
No, I don't think
I
so.
swear.
Or if you did, I didn't
on
look at it.
Wild
Sorry.
Cannons. Yeah. How dare you, man?
I'm busy, man.
Yeah, too cool, man. Wild Cannons, Ghostface, man.
No.
All right, but this girl, they just posted it recently. Like it happened like last week or something. But this girl it was, I believe, in Jackson, sends this huge double back into his pal and just like, whoa, boom, hits back on her back, pops up. Ooh, like her older brothers were there like, oh my God, like going, I mean, there was like probably 40 people watching this because they were probably all hitting off this, but yeah. I sent it to a few people and they're like, oh man, that little kid's, I'm like, that's a girl. That's a girl that just did that, yo. 11 years old. Like, I'm talking about sending it, like insane big. Like, what is going on, yo?
It's another level.
Crazy.
Yeah, so that'd be the other spot, like Mount Baker. Like that's to me, that's like the gold up there for snowboarding.
Yeah.
But ripping Jackson on a board though, I mean.
Yeah.
Lake Paul, yeah,
I haven't been to Jackson yet. I haven't been to Baker either.
You gotta go.
I know.
Jackson Hole had me like puckered. I'd never been. There's a run called Spacewalk up there. I was super nervous. I'm not gonna lie. I was like, I can't see. You can't see where you're dropping in at. And there's a mandatory like 5 foot drop out, and you're trusting these guys, and they're like probably not 5 feet. It's probably more like 10.
Yeah.
They're 5 feet. Their scale is on a different level.
Yeah.
But we have some good buddies there that keep us safe. But you got to know that if you're going out of bounds there. There's like one run. He's like, oh yeah, you don't go right. Why don't we go right? And he's like, there's like a 600-foot cliff that way.
Yeah.
So their side country is it's a whole nother level.
Yeah.
Theirs is more like backcountry, I would say, than just true side country, like where a lot of stuff that we're doing, like here, Schweitzer is definitely.
Yeah, side country.
Yeah. Still dangerous.
But that's why I love having that Onyx backcountry app, man, because it'll show you where something majorly steep is in a zone that's like, well, there's nothing else steep here, so that is a cliff.
Yeah.
And like we just did Sherman Peak, and there's a huge cliff up there. Like this whole band takes up this side of the cliff, this cliff band, and I mean it's a few 100 feet for sure. Like you don't want to mess that up. And so like on the app, you can see exactly where you're at and make sure you're like not even gonna come into that zone,
Yeah, that technology. So, good to have that technology going.
Yeah, I won't, dude. I'm so glad to have that. Like even like I'm saying for inbounds, like just exploring resorts now, I'm like, all right, well I can figure a lot of this out because it has that slope angle. what is it called? Either way, it shows slope angles, and it's really nice, man.
Yeah, 'cause
So
all that stuff we want to ride is exactly the stuff that wants to slide.
yeah, yeah. Um, let's shift gears to how'd you get working at some of the colleges?
Yeah.
So you were in the restaurant industry
Yeah. So
for a long time.
I was in the restaurant industry for a long time, and I was working at Wild Sage at night. I was bartending there, and then I was also working at Clinker Dagger during the day. And I was opening up Clinker. I would open up there so I'd have time to go open up the bar at Wild Sage. And long story reason why I was working there, but working there with both jobs, and I was saving money. And one day I walked around. There's like, those really nice pillars if you've been into Clinker Dagger.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, if this is like supposed to be one of the best spots in town, I'm not really feeling that it is. And I think Wild Sage is, but what if that closed down? Like, where would I want to work? And I was like, man, I just need, I haven't been able to figure it out. Like, I'm making good money for Spokane. I'm able to do everything that I want, but I want more. So how do I do that? And I was like, all right, well, I decided that day was going to be my, like the last day that I would potentially be working there. I'll put my 2 weeks in. Went home, wrote a little letter of resignation, thanking them for having me. Signed up for school that same day, got registered back at the community college. Never finished my AA. I thought soccer was going to be that. It was that bridge for me to get into schools. I had decent grades, but never finished. So I was like, all right, let's just do this. And I knew before, that I wanted to do something more than just work in the restaurant business, but I didn't know what. So I went to community college, and I started thinking, okay, originally I wanted to be a teacher when I was going to go to college. The other thing that I liked was being a firefighter. With all my injuries and stuff, like, they weren't gonna.
Yeah.
So I was like, maybe I want to go into teaching. But I had a cultural communications class that I really enjoyed. I was like, I have a lot of communication credits. I'm going to go with that. So I went to transfer into Eastern, did communication studies, focused on PR, so public relations. That's what my emphasis was in. Loved it. Wasn't sure that's what I really wanted to do, but I knew two things: that I wanted to work with people, and I wanted to make their lives better than when I'd met them. So that was like, all right, I think, I can find that, and I can find that in PR, and that was in community relations. So I was like, I want to work with nonprofits. I don't want to work for the nonprofit. I want to work with someone that's giving them the money. So I want to be the ones handing them the check. And two of the best places to do that in Spokane would be Spokane Teachers Credit Union or New America Credit Union. So that's where I started putting my focus in. That's what I wanted to do. But super tight window of trying to get a job. And I met with Eric at Spokane Teachers Credit Union and asked him, I was like, if there was one thing that you could do differently. So I just, I like to call it warm call instead of cold call. But just cold called him and said, hey, can you meet me for coffee? He said, sure. And during that process, he said, if there's one thing I could do differently, it'd be getting my master's. And I was like, well, I'm back into school mode. Like, it's only 2 years. And if that's how I'm going to get that job, I'm going to do it. So applied to get my master's at Eastern. So I graduated, was on track to go to graduate school. During graduate school, then I also got a position teaching as part of it. Got some scholarships, and then I fell back in love with teaching. And I was like, actually, teaching is what I really want to do. And I learned some of that because my first year at grad school, I also got a internship working with New America, and it was for their community outreach. But their social media manager was leaving on maternity leave, and they're like, hey, you have social media experience. Would you want to take this role? It's going to last a little bit longer, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, sure, like, as long as I can stay with you guys. And they're like, and we'll help facilitate you to learn about the community outreach that we're doing. And I was like, yes. So I did that, and I was like, okay, I know I don't want to be a social media manager. I know PR is not my thing, but working with individuals, whatever way, that I can help them be better from, before they met me, that's what I want to do. And then teaching, I was like, okay, now I really want to teach. But it's one of those catch-22s is when you're teaching, you need experience. So if they want to hire you into college, they're like, well, what experience do you have? You're like, well, if nobody's hiring me, how do I get experience? So I had a little bit of that experience, ended up graduating, having a little bit of experience, and then started applying to the colleges, and nothing was sticking. Then COVID happens. I started working, still working in the restaurant business. COVID happens. everything starts shutting down. There's NG Impact. I was able to get a job working for them, worked with their telecommunications. Honestly, hated it. Worst job, one of the worst jobs I've ever had. Not what I had signed up for, but I was like, what can I learn from this experience? What's the takeaway I can get from it? I went from thinking I want to stay there for 6 months. Then it was like, I hope I can make it through 2 months. I ended up staying for 8. Got picked up with a job at the community college, and it wasn't a teaching job, but I figured if I could get my foot in the door with the college, that would just give me that much more experience. And I worked with WorkSource as well as SCC. My role was to help facilitate individuals that were on unemployment, which there was a lot of at that time, to get into one of our programs. So I did that for over a year, was offered adjunct positions at Eastern, but couldn't take them because the Falls wouldn't allow me to do it because I was working for 2 state entities, and they just weren't. There was a lot of paperwork for that to go through, and I don't think it was the involvement to get that all done. The prep wasn't. My manager, I don't think, wanted to do the prep work to put that paperwork in. And then I had a new manager, and she was like, "Yeah, I'll help you do it." But then I had a new role come up, and that's where I worked with a nonprofit, Career Path Services, which is absolutely amazing. And I worked with at-risk youth, so 16 to 24-year-olds. These individuals, homeless, they don't have jobs. They're looking for a place to stay. They're looking for food. We're helping them, get their driver's license, or helping them, get their GED, whatever they need. We're there to help facilitate. So basically, like a career coach for them. And I really like doing that.
Is that through a nonprofit?
Yeah, it's Career Path Services.
Oh, that is
the
same
name of it. Yeah.
Okay.
But the area I worked was called the Next Generation Zone, and worked with some awesome people there too. We got paid well, but the work that they're doing, like, they should get paid more.
Do you think there's some people from that organization that would like to come on here?
Yeah, I have one guy that would definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I've been saying, as you've listened, like, this is chapter 20, but I feel, really what I want to get done here as well is like, I want to talk to awesome people doing cool things, but I want to talk to people doing important things for the community. And because, there's a lot of things we all see going on that we're like, oh, Spokane could be better, like these things suck, like whatever it is, right? Well, we can all just talk about it, but what are you doing to figure out how you can be involved to be better? And me included, like I've said openly that I want city chapters to help better the community. And with this podcast, I see that talking to individuals from nonprofits that are actually in the trenches doing this work and sharing their message, sharing their story, could be of benefit for people to really understand like how to get involved more than them maybe having to Google stuff online. That's hard, to find that story. But I feel like the people that listen, like, and, those stories being shared initially could help people have a better understanding of what's going on and what they could do.
Yeah.
So,
I have 2 individuals. Mike and Susie would be the 2 that I would go to.
Yeah.
Loved working with both. It was hard. It was actually really hard for me to leave. The reason why I left is so I could teach at Eastern. But great company culture, great support that we had there, and the team of those 2 working together. You're literally seeing people change their lives. See their excitement when they pass one portion of their GED, or getting someone I would take people to go get their driver's license. So they'd drive them there. They do the test. That whole thing, and you see the look on their face and like how proud they are. Or, like, I'd take a picture, like, send this to your mom or dad. Or I worked with a couple that had just got out of jail, so 2 individuals, and I still stay in contact with them. And it's just crazy. They're getting out, they have nothing, they're getting back into the real world. They're trying to struggle how to do that. They don't trust people, as well. They're like, someone offered. A lot of individuals, like, people have made a lot of promises. They don't follow through on it. I'm like, I'm going to be the guy that goes through. And one individual, and we got him set up with some skills and trades. We got him, and he got I wouldn't say we got it. He got himself a job working. He actually works at Eastern. doing construction out there. He just bought like a new car. He makes more money than I do, you know, kind of thing. So it's
cool,
like one of those
man.
where I'm like,
That's awesome.
so we'll meet and have lunch there. So I
Yeah.
get to hear his story.
Yeah.
And there's two of them that, you know, in a short amount of time that I worked there, I got to see them progress rapidly into having a lifestyle that they want. So kind of going from nothing, you know, when they're like, you know, I'm on lockdown. I can only be out so many hours a day for this long, and being able to work with them and build that. A lot of it's just building rapport.
Yeah.
So having someone come on, I think, to talk even more in depth what they're doing would be really cool. Because to me, it's about like building that community and looking back, and this would kind of maybe tie into more of why I wanted to go into community outreach. I started looking at stuff that I'd been doing before. And my mom, we did a lot of stuff with nonprofits, just doing it. And I naturally continued doing that, whether it was volunteering at Second Harvest, giving blood, just anything like that. I found like this is kind of in my wheelhouse that I want to support the community. Like Spokane means a lot to me. When I write my, you know, resume, or my cover letter, I say how much the community means to me and what I feel like I can give back to it and that I want to help. And it's doing those little things here and there. For the snowboard community, my buddies and I did that we were bored talking about what could we do to build community in the snowboard world, but still support, you know, our community. And that was, we started this thing called Spread the Shred. I don't know if you ever went to that or heard of that.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
And we did that, and that was just because we were bored and wanted to build a community. All the money that we would raise from Spread the Shred would go to a group that we don't have affiliation with in Spokane anymore, but it was called SOS Outreach. All that money would go to Mount Spokane. At-risk youth then could go snowboarding for a weekend. So they get lessons, gear, everything they needed, all paid for.
I love that.
So it was doing things like that.
That's awesome. That doesn't exist no more?
No, so there was three of us. One of our buddies moved to Denver, and then we did it 1 year afterwards. Then he just couldn't make it up as much. And there's, you know, as you know, putting on events, there's a lot of back end that was going on, and we had no clue what we were doing. You know, for the most part, we learned through 5 years, but we would do it at the Garland, where we had a connection. We'd have almost all the shops, ski, snowboard, would all support us. We'd give away cat skiing trips to Canada. And we gave away a ton of gear, more gear than like any other event that's been held. I think that was one of the reasons why we had such a big turnout.
Yeah.
But all that money, I mean, it was like the Garland would gross the most. It's when they first put their bar in. They would gross more that one night than any other night because of their sales. For just the beer.
What was the event centered around? I've heard of the Spread the Shred, but
so
I don't
Spread
remember.
the Shred, we would just do 2 snowboard premieres. So this is back when that was more of a thing, before social media really took hold.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it was videographs, so we would have pros come as well. And it was so much fun. But it was a lot of hard work to put in, and you know, it's also hard to be asking shops that are struggling to ask for free stuff. But we also had some big brands support us with boards.
Yeah.
But just a lot of work of reaching out, asking for things, and hopefully that it, you know, it pans out to help out those local shops and, you know, supporting local as well. But we had a lot of good support from it. But again, it was just our boredom of, there was Local 77 that when they were still around, they had the Resistance like movie premiere, and they got like forum snowboarders here. It was awesome. Partied with them. It was like amazing. It's like, how can you recapture that? There's been a few here and there where there was movie premieres, but that to me was like, how can you recapture that feeling, and how can you have a snowboard culture in Spokane that everyone can enjoy, that I'm passionate about, but then how can we also then give back to the community? And that was the whole thing. Let's throw a party, let's make some money, let's watch some snowboard films, let's meet like-minded individuals, and then let's give this money to, you know, someone that can't snowboard. It's just, snowboarding is freaking expensive. And how do you get someone into that? And, you know, culturally as well, where it's basically a lot of white people. So how do you get into a sport that's dominant by, you know, a white driven, economic driven base of how do you get people introduced to that in a good way? And that was kind of we didn't really have a mission for it. But it was more for us to have fun and then give back.
Yeah, try to give back.
We've talked about doing that. Shane and I talked about doing something like that. That's still something that I have on the dock of what I would like to do moving forward.
Well, yeah, I got something I'd like to talk to you about after.
Yeah.
I mean, Joel kind of put it on at the end.
Yeah.
We're
So
talking a rail jam.
Yeah.
But I don't want to put all that info out yet into the world. But there's some developments that I want to talk to you about and see what interests you would have. And I love the idea of like one nonprofit I'm interested in, but I don't think they help with like getting kids on the mountain as far as snowboarding, skiing goes. But it's Peak 7.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they do more like mountaineering and stuff.
Yeah.
But interested in them, you know, and want to have them on the podcast as well.
There you go. Yeah, it's bringing a lot of it's just bringing awareness to what's going on. How do we get more diversity into? That's what we were talking about, like girls. You know, we have more girls riding, have more, you know, people that don't have that opportunity. That's where I think bringing like the voice to the voiceless, but then also standing behind our words, and then actually, you know, physically getting them to the mountain if that's where it is. So like to me, I'm a big advocate for the Spokane Riverkeeper. I've worked with them, so I do, you know, pick up a lot of trash around our river, try to make that clean. I say if you're gonna like, you know, put a sticker on your water bottle or whatever, you better like, you know, also be, you know, putting your money where your mouth is. Same thing with like IPAC, the Idaho Panhandle Avalanche Center. They're doing a lot of good, but you know, they're a nonprofit. They need money somehow. So you know, what are ways that we can support stuff that we're.
I got John Totten coming on. So he'll be on here next week.
Wonderful.
We're going to talk about that, but we're going to talk about his Dog Smiles Sailing as well, which is like a nonprofit sailing company that he does out of Ponderay.
Yeah.
And he's going on some crazy race up to Alaska.
He'll be great on here. He has lots of energy.
Yeah, he's cool. He was obviously my instructor, but I went in the backcountry with him. After the avalanche course that week, I went into the Schweitzer backcountry with him. That was awesome. Yeah, you know, and that's where we decided like
you got to come on
about the podcast. I told him I had one. He was telling me about the race. I was like, well, I got a podcast. Would you want to come on? He was like, definitely.
Yeah,
so
give that awareness. Yeah, he's a great guy. Great courses that they have up there as well. So if you haven't got it, go get your every one. You learn a lot. You look at the mountain differently.
Yeah.
We talk about like this, like, so I teach leadership as well.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that I bring in is you talk about having a crew. You have to have people that you trust.
Yeah.
And trust is that big thing when you're in that backcountry. If something does happen or it goes sideways, you're putting your life in other people's hands.
Mm-hmm.
And that there is somewhat of a leader, but basically everyone's a leader. So if you're all heading up the mountain, the person in the back, it doesn't matter where you're at, everyone should be looking and aware of what's going on, because they should be able to speak up and say, hey, like this doesn't feel right, or that doesn't look right, or did you hear that? Mm-hmm. So everyone should be on it. So little things like that I think people should know when they're, you know, going back to that side country and the back country. And,
no expert halos.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I mean, even me and my brother, like since we started doing backcountry, I'm conservative. My brother is ultra conservative. And so like sometimes when I'm trying to tell him what I'm thinking out there, it's not translating, or he's like still questioning it. And so like having the crew is essential, but also having like communication where you have to understand like you're going to have tension back there, and how do you work through it, because it's gonna happen. And like if you listen to all snowboarding crews that go out in the backcountry, they're like, there's moments we fucking want to kill each other, and then there's moments like we get back and it's still amazing, the trip was still amazing, but you have those moments back there where things get a little challenging because people aren't agreeing on certain things, you know, and like you could see it in that Art of Flight film or like other films where it happens where
Lando's like,
he was pissed. Like, I knew it, we shouldn't be here, and what are we doing, right? And so, and I would honestly say I'm ultra conservative, but like the communication skill in the backcountry and like working through it, because it is life or death, man, out there, and like having your crew where you and I've gotten better about this. It's like, just because we're having a disagreement doesn't mean I need to take it personal. I think I took a lot of things personal in my life. And when I'm out there and I'm trying to work through something with somebody, I don't try to take it personal. You gotta leave that away, And so anybody that's gonna like really stay in their feelings out there, that's not good either. Like, you cannot stay in your feelings out there. You get into the situation, and even if it means like, all right, nobody's feeling comfortable with this, I'm gonna take the back seat. Let's stick to this safer plan. That's fine. You know what I mean? But I've had it happen just in the short time that I've been doing this a few times, where it's like, all right, well, we're not agreeing on maybe my idea of what I want to do. So let's just do what you guys feel safe with. Like, I'm not just gonna like push through to do what I want to do, and I think that's good training for, like, I mean, there's so many parallels to life and snowboarding for me.
Is.
Like, you heard me and Shane talk, so like me and him went off on that for a while. And I haven't got a ride with him this season. I've been trying to. So Shane, if you listening, what's up, bro?
I know, what's up, bro? It's the same thing. You're hitting it hard early, and then ghost.
Yeah. So, yeah, man, it's just working through the backcountry IPAC and that, and like, they're great. Thank God we have them. They're doing great work, and I've been, even since I've started, like, I've had a lot of people be like, "Oh man, it looks awesome. You should take me sometime." Nope.
Yeah.
I'm not taking you. Get yourself, one is like, to be honest, like, you need to have a certain skill set of basic riding skills before you're even thinking about the backcountry. And I feel like a lot of people are kind of like skipping that step now because they see and want to be in that world, but they don't have even the basic riding skills. Like, I rode resort, and there's other reasons why I didn't get into the backcountry earlier, but I'm glad that it's went the way that it has, because now that I'm in my early 30s, like, the way I approach and think about the backcountry and the decisions that I make are completely different than what I would have been doing if I had been younger. And if I would have fell in with the right crew that introduced me to the backcountry, that would have been great. That didn't happen. But now that I'm at this age, like, I feel like I'm entering it in the most mature way.
Yeah, that's the word I was looking at.
Yeah, at a mature age, and just a great time for me personally to be doing so. Same with my brother. So, and it's cool because now that I'm doing this, like, the universe is like opening up doors and, causing connections for me to be with people that have more experience in this world. And, like, yeah, I like the resort and I like sending it, but like, really, I just want to get out there with me and some close homies and a crew and just like really enjoy the mountain and some serious epic lines,
some big old airplane turns. Like,
yeah, just.
So you're talking about meeting up with those people, and then it's also on the flip side when you get to see people's face after you take them back there somewhere.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, your smile is like out to here, and your brother's eyes, like, I remember he popped his goggles and his eyes were like this, and I was like, that's it.
Dilated, like, oh my goodness. Yeah.
So having that experience also to pass that on.
Yeah.
And I think that's where what people don't realize is when you make these bonds and you have this crew with people, it's a couple hours drive to the mountain, let's say, at the farthest in this area. So that's 2 hours you're spending with somebody. Then you're spending all day with them. So it's like, another 6 hours of riding and then 2 hours back. It's a long time to be spending with somebody. And that's when I was saying I'm kind of picky with, I mean, that's a lot of energy to be putting out too. If you're not, buddies with someone, or if you're always having constantly to be watching, like, what are they doing? Are they, if you're worried.
Yeah.
So when you start making those bonds outside of, like with you and your brother, like, oh yeah, like, this is a good crew to ride with because they, it's like community. You have that same kind of brotherhood feeling, like they have my back, even if it's inbounds of what's going on. And I think that, and then the banter with it, the conversations, like we always joke, like Chairlift Diaries, people are venting on it. You're like, oh, like
I've been just coming up with all these slogans lately on the chair, and then I'll use them as my post, like whatever it is, like what was one of the ones, mind the prime
Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
day.
So stuff like that, there
It
you go.
was so
And that's
funny,
how we
yeah.
get into like saying stuff. And maybe that's a
Yeah.
good segue into
Yeah.
if you want to talk about like the wild cannons, stuff like that, because that's basically how that whole thing got started.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, let's get there. I don't want to just, because I kind of shifted gears on you about IPAC and talking about backcountry, but I want to stay in that zone of like you doing some of the work to be at service for a second. So you mentioned IPAC. Was there any other organizations that you've worked with?
Spokane Riverkeeper.
Yeah,
is the-
Riverkeeper. And that one's just about cleaning up by the river?
Yeah, so like you get a group like if you want to do it, and we've thought about this as well. Like you can set up appointments to do the river cleanup. So we get like a bunch of our snowboard crew to go do that. And this is another area of the Northwest or inland Northwest that people don't think about, especially snowboarders. We're riding these mountains, Lookout, Silver. Where are the drainage?
Yeah.
And where is this water coming from? Like, where is the water coming from Schweitzer? What rivers and lakes are they going into? What's going underwater? And all of that runoff is basically going, a lot of it's going into the Spokane River.
Yeah, pretty much
So
all
when
of it.
we think
from
of it,
those
when we're
regions,
floating
yeah.
it and we're doing all this stuff, that's all the snow that we're riding that's melted.
Yeah.
So there's like this connection that I feel like that I need to continue protecting it. Like I want to protect it, like do whatever I can do so that we continue to have snowfall.
Yeah.
And I want to keep our mountains clean, but then I also want to keep all our rivers clean as well, because that's just an extension of what I want to do during the summer. Like I want to float the river, I want to paddleboard, I want to kayak, and I want to continue like what my passion is to stay as green as possible, but do that in ways that also support these, nonprofits as well. So not just doing it on my own, but showing that I am supporting them. And the amount of trash they pull out of the Spokane River is absolutely disgusting. So to think what's in Coeur d'Alene, like, man, I don't know. But in the last 10 years, I know the river is extremely, extremely cleaner than it was before. And you can see it if you spend time on the river. Like Josh Wing, shout out there. See that guy out fishing on it.
Fishing
we're
all the time,
paddleboarding
yeah.
around, and he's out there, always killing it.
Yeah, I've
So
been
to see-
fishing with him a few times out there.
So you see, like, those are the same homies that you see on the mountain, out there doing their thing on the river. So that's always cool, I think, as well.
Yeah, I would love to join you, man. I've worked at, volunteered at Second Harvest. Is probably the most I've volunteered at any one organization. I've done some other places, but I want to get more involved. I feel like that's just like a big part of where I need to get my life to get away from this self like attachment to my own benefits, and like, I'm reading the Bhagavad Gita right now, and it's like a lot of it talks about like just being of service, and it's something that I really do feel. And I battle with it because I want to be at service, but I get caught in the loop of like, whether it's just finances or whatever, like how do I make more money so I can survive or like whatever, and like in that survival mode. And I try to be in the giving mode and like at service mode, and I can do it for some time. And then I revert because I'm taking things personally in my life. Like, oh, my life isn't good enough. I'm not doing good enough. I need to make more money. I need to do this better. So then it all comes back to being about me again. And it's not me living and being at service, because at the end of the day, something I have to work through and remind myself is like, dude, you're so blessed. Like, you need to live in that knowledge that like, dude, you have so much to be grateful for, and there's so many others that and things in the world that could use your help, instead of always being like, how can I build a successful brand that's super financially stable or whatever. And like, honestly, like, money doesn't really motivate me. Like, that's something that I've come to learn. Like, I like money, I want money, but it doesn't, it's not like what I wake up and dream about. Like, I dream about awesome experiences. I dream about changing and benefiting the world, or not even changing the world, but just benefiting the world, right? Like, I don't want to be like, oh, I'm gonna change the world. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm just trying to say, like, I want to help my environment be better, and I want to put myself in better environments, but sometimes those environments don't even exist. So you have to be the one to help it come about,
you're
right?
curating that.
Yeah, curate it.
There's different styles of leadership, and one that I'm drawn to is called servant leadership. And that's basically where you're putting the others in front of you.
Yeah.
And so there's little ways that we can have that servant leadership. And again, I like to think of it as the voice. You're giving the voice to the voiceless, or you're doing something for someone that doesn't have that voice.
Yeah.
And so just taking it little chunks at a time. Like Second Harvest is awesome one to do. It's one that you can be social with. Like if you want to bring friends, be like, hey, let's do this like one Thursday out of the month. It's only 3 hours. It's really easy to schedule. You don't have to have any background on it. You can just go do it. And that's why I like Second Harvest. Salvation Army is another one, like especially through COVID. I volunteered when I wasn't working. When the restaurant was closed, I volunteered through that time because they were hurting for people. So my mom, I did a lot with my mom.
Cool.
My mom's dope, but she was
That's
like,
awesome.
what, like, let's do this together. And I was like, all right. I was like, you're probably couldn't slow her down. She's like, well, I'm healthy. Like, I was like, you sure you want to be out there? And she's like, oh, we're doing this. So we did a lot together.
That's awesome.
But that wasn't my first choice of where to support, but they needed the most help.
Yeah.
So I did a lot of support during that time.
Love it, man.
With the Salvation Army. So I think it's like we take those little steps, and then it's just finding how we want to give back. And sometimes it's our time, sometimes it's money. But if you don't have the money, we can definitely don't be on our phone for that 3 hours. Like that's 3 hours in 1 month is nothing. So, and I kind of was doing that already before school, and then getting into school, I got real passionate about it, that I want to help the community as best I can.
Yeah.
And again, that falls back to teaching. And I started thinking about also when I was working in the restaurant business, what did I enjoy the most about it? It was the banter with the cooks, like having that relationship. Like I loved that part of it, the back and forth. And then it was also when I was working with the guest of teaching about food. If they had questions, because we use French, terms, Italian, all sorts of stuff that are not everyday words. So to educate them on drinks, with my drink knowledge or the knowledge of the food or how it's prepared, to really make that experience special to them. And I was told this when I worked at Luna by a manager, and he was like, you never know who you're waiting on. This might be the one time a year that they're going out to eat. This is their special occasion. So you should make that experience for everybody. And that really stuck with me, because we never ate out at restaurants like that as a kid.
Yeah.
We had pizza, and I would have McDonald's, but we really didn't eat. There was a Mexican restaurant that we like to go to. That was it. My mom cooked every single night. And looking back on that, I was like, that was so awesome.
Yeah.
To have that experience with her, that time with her.
Yeah.
But looking back at that, there might be someone that can't afford this. This is their one experience where they're having, maybe it's a job promotion or something, and that's their one time. And that's always stuck with me. And the same thing, I think, with students, you never know what a student's experience was before. They might have hated their teachers. How do you break that chain of there are teachers who care, that want the best for you, that want to see you grow, that want to support you. And it's not just about getting a grade at the end of the day. And that's how I feel like I'm serving now the students. It's not just about teaching you what, you're learning about, whether I teach a mass media class or leadership or digital and social media. It's more of how can we take this and make it to the real world? And sometimes the stuff that we're learning in class isn't just about the curriculum. It's about how we can take the style of learning and what we're learning, how to interact with our professors or our peers, and take that to the real world. And that's where I think that growth is, and that's how I'm giving back in that sense. So I like to do it all. As many ways as I can give back, I'll try to give back. And that's just what I found for my leadership style and just my personal style. And I think both my parents instilled that in me. I didn't see it as much with my dad until I was older, until I actually reflected and saw what he was doing and the reasons why he was doing it, which I just didn't understand. As a youth, especially being too much like him, we would butt heads. And actually saw he was more giving than I ever thought. He just didn't know how to show it. And it was the cousins all loved him. He was the favorite. And I was like, how is he the favorite? He's an a-hole.
Yeah.
But then I started seeing how much he gave up for his younger brothers. He was their baseball, basketball coach. He bought them their cleats. He bought them their glove. It wasn't my, grandma. It wasn't my grandpa. He was the one that did it all, and what he sacrificed. in that, and other things that he sacrificed that I just kind of took for granted and thought like, oh, he just doesn't want to be here. He doesn't, he doesn't know what my favorite color or favorite food is. He's just giving money and like talking all it was, phone calls every Sunday. Oh, just what's school going on? I'm like, I don't want to talk about that.
Yeah.
No, I'm just understanding like he had a higher purpose for me, and he didn't know how to go from the top down to say like, hey, I really care about you. Like those words weren't used.
No.
But seeing like looking back, that reflection of he just didn't know how to say it. And he was a huge giver, and my mom was that way, but I saw that and it was interacted in my life. So it was a huge stamp on me.
Yeah.
And that's how I want to continue moving forward. I want to be as positive as possible, which I always wasn't. I want to put myself around positive people. I want people that are shakers and movers. And I want to feed off their energy, and I want to continuously learn. And when I went into school, I actually loved being a non-traditional student at this point. I loved learning. Loved getting my master's. If Eastern had a doctorate program, I would have definitely gone into it. And they talk about CEOs, right? They read a book every month. So I was like, I'm going to start doing that. I was like, that probably is crazy. I was like, that's easy.
Yeah.
Watch less TV, read more, gain that knowledge, and then you just want more. That thirst for knowledge, I think, just continues to grow. That's why I was excited to do like this podcast, or listen to your podcast, listen to people here in this area that I can connect with and learn from them as well. And that sense of community. So good on you having this and having those individuals on here.
Well, thank you, man. I appreciate you telling me that, because that's the goal, for like people to get to know other people in this area and know their story and know more about them, or just even hear about them the first time and be like, wow, I didn't know this person was out here, because there's a lot of that, where there's a lot of people doing amazing things, but they don't have any seemingly like bigger representation outside of their own circle,
Right.
like, so yeah, I just feel like and I use the word highlight because it plays off a book, right? Highlighting a chapter, or highlighting a verse, right? Or a sentence, right? And highlighting somebody's story in this city, and I think that is important because there's just so many awesome people out here that I feel like their voices need to be heard. And I haven't really seen a platform that's taken the approach the way that I do, you know what I mean? And I'm not saying I'm the only one doing this, because I'm not, but I am me, and my approach is different than their approach. And we all have a different flavor that is all good, you know what I mean? Like, so like Zach and Happy to be here, those homies are doing it different, but I love what they do, and I think they love what I do and they support me. And so I support Brennan and Brennan supports me, but we all have our own podcast and our own voice, I guess is a good way to say it. Our own unique voice in the way that we're approaching, sharing stories of Spokane and highlighting or, having special individuals on. So, and it's really cool learning more about you, because I was doing a little research prior to this, and I seen like, a lot of these nonprofit organizations that you've worked with. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. Like, I love that part and knowing that about T, because it's, something I want to be more involved with friends, doing that kind of stuff around Spokane, and I want city chapters to be involved in that, but that really just means at this point in time, me being involved in that kind of stuff. But I want to do it with others, you know what I mean? And I'll do things by myself. Like every time I did Second Harvest, I was always by myself. And that's fine. I met cool people, but I am definitely a crew orientated type of fella, and I've always been that way. But I lost a lot of my crew members through the years because of lifestyle changes that I've made, where the lifestyle used to be drinking, partying, drugs, fighting, this whole thing. That was a lot of negativity there. And I think all of my old crew has grown and went different ways, but we're just not together no more because of whatever trauma or whatever happened between us, because it was all dysfunctional living that we were in, you know, and now it's like, you know, whatever, like maybe we can all come back together in a future date and laugh at how stupid we were, you
Right.
know,
Yeah, you
and
agree.
be like, yo, man, like I'm glad to see you're doing good and you feel the same way for me. But, you know, during that time, you know, of me deciding I can't be around certain things anymore, it's caused me a lot of isolation. And then like COVID happened, and then
Oh, that's
you know what I mean. And so like I'm just now I feel hopefully finding some people that I can really be more connected with, and because I'm like when I say I'm your friend or you're my brother, like, and I mean that at the deepest level, like, and so I am searching for that. I luckily do have my real brother, John, and I thankfully have him to ride with. Thank God he loves snowboarding like I do, because, you know, without him, I think it would be a little more challenging for me to get out there and progress the way that I have, you know. Me and him just ride well together. You know what I mean? And like you said, being picky who you ride with, I think that's like a definite thing that's kind of in the snowboard culture, and it kind of sucks sometimes, but it's also needed too, you know? And what I found with me and my brother is that like we'll meet crews and, you know, there can be some gatekeeping there or whatever.
Yeah.
But like once we like really get to be around them and the energy is just like, dog, I just like me and you being together. Like,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
cause it's just like less waiting, more riding, and us just pushing each other. But you can't get away from the fact when you're in a good crew with like 6, 8 people and you're really hitting it and riding like we did this weekend, you know, and like, you know, I hit a little ollie and people are cheering.
Yeah,
You
it's
know what I
fun.
mean? It's like, oh, that feels different because when it's me and my brother, like, yeah, we like, oh man, that was sick and that feels good. But when there's a few more people around watching you, you know, go at it and everybody's like hyping each other up and like you're just like, you know, all laughing and there's just a more collective mind there about the unity of the runs we're taking. It's just like a little bit different too, you
Brings it to
know.
another level.
Yeah, you get the like I got a high the other day, you know what I
That
mean?
was super fun.
Yeah, we're back, and I think we were just talking about like crews, but you know, anyway, I you know have fell out with a lot of people from my past, you know, and it's a lot of love for a lot of them. I just don't see them. They got families, and they're doing their thing, and you know, I'm just not living that life, you know, still on the bachelor life. And I'm just really kind of addicted to like progressing in certain things that I'm like, I don't really want to give that up, you know, and snowboarding being a big one now. But the other thing too was just saying like, you know, I want to, and I've been trying to manifest me finding and being around friends that are out there involved in bettering the world, you know, like with what I'm trying to do with city chapters. And so finding out that you're more involved in community service and work is really cool to know. And like, I want to be involved in anything you think I can join you on, man. I'll be there.
Yeah.
You know, just let me know and I'll be there.
So you're kind of putting like, I think that you're putting a new lens on your life, right? In some aspects.
Yeah.
And then it's using this platform. So I think you've already done one step at creating that. And it could be one where you have like a call to action and you'd be like, hey, everyone that's been on the, you know, it's like, this is the 25th, chapter, let's all get together and let's go volunteer together and we can get to know each other that way.
Yeah.
Like Thursdays is like blessings under the bridge. So that's something that I do, here and there. So there's multiple areas that we could do something like that. And then you could just bring in, then it's a way all of us can meet. And it's not like, it's like, okay, we're planning on this, date at this time, and you give lots of heads up. And then if they come, they come. If they don't come, they don't come.
I've thought about that.
And then you still have a meeting of minds, and then we're all giving back to the community in different ways. And you never know, someone might be like, hey, I'm really involved in this, where we're giving, clothes to someone or whatever it may be. It could open our eyes up to another aspect that someone else is passionate about in the community.
Yeah.
But then we're all supporting as well. So
I agree. And
definitely open to let you know when I'm doing something.
Yeah, and then like you said, I could share it on here and just be like, hey, this is what I'm going to be doing with T on this date if anybody wants to join. And I've thought about how, yeah, I don't have a bunch of employees for city chapters. It's just me. But it doesn't mean, like you're saying, that I can share the word and invite others to join, and like, this is where I'll be. And I think that, that is, a form of invitation. Like, being invited is a different situation, and hearing of something and being invited to something's a little different than you having to do the legwork to figure out where you're going to go and how you're going to volunteer, where somebody just offers the invitation and you're like, I'm going to do that.
Yeah,
it's a little easier.
Yeah. Here's a link,
Yeah.
sign up. Or, it's just one that this is the time we're doing it, depending on what it is. Here's the time, this is what we're doing, this is the time frame we're going to be here, drop in when you can.
Exactly.
And then you also frame it as, meet some of these other individuals that are, looking at life the same way as you are. If you want to make these changes, like, this is one area we're making the change. And if you're passionate about another aspect of the community that you want to support, come here, let us know. How can we do it together?
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, let's do that. I mean, let me know and I'll share it on here and I'll be there,
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun getting to know people. I had a friend, she lives in Boise, but she would get us together to do that, and we would catch up, and we did it at Second Harvest. So you're picking through onions or peppers or whatever it may be, and just, and then the banner starts going again, and that's part of it, of having those friendships and, giving each other a little bit of crap here and there, but then also saying, like, what are you doing with your life? What's the root, not just the superficial stuff.
Yeah.
You're getting down a little deeper, and then you're also doing something to get back. And that's what we think about time, like time's money in that area as well. And sometimes we don't have the money, but we do have the time.
Yeah.
And just giving that support, which we need in this area. I mean, look at what we have going on if you just drive down through downtown. And if we can't help those areas, what are other areas that we can help support?
Mm-hmm. For sure. Yeah. I guess we got a little time left, so let's talk about wild cannons.
Wild cannons.
Yeah, in the theory of the Ghostface.
So the theory of the Ghostface. Man. So wild cannons was started with a buddy of mine, Jeff Hull, and the idea was
same Jeff I met the other day.
Jeff that you met the other day.
Yeah.
And it was the idea that we wanted to put a bunch of snowboard content on that wasn't on our own Instagram, and that we wanted to create a little community of fun stuff that we were doing. We know we're not the best. There's so many good riders in this area. There's guys that can, spin more, go faster, definitely hit the steel way better than we can. They're in the streets, love the passion, love the sport, especially the youth. Jib Junk, you guys are out there crushing it. But we wanted something fun where we could post the stuff that we enjoyed and the shenanigans that kind of go around some of the riding. And it started in our actually first trip to Jackson Hole and how we got the name. And, great day of riding. It was a great day. It was Seahawks were playing. They won a playoff game. Like, it was crazy day. We were in up this little pizza place called Pinky G's, where we go almost every night. And we were there with my buddy Tyler and his wife. And Jeff was on this rant about this girl. So we're trying to make this as short as possible. About this girl. And he kept saying, instead of loose cannon, he kept saying wild cannon.
Yeah.
And I was dying. I thought it was the funniest thing ever. I was like, who says that? Nobody ever says it's loose cannon. I was like, that's the language. So anytime the rest of that trip, I would say, oh, you being a wild cannon? Or, oh, wild cannon would do that. So I used it. You're talking about like on the chairlift. So I used that for a week because we traveled down to Salt Lake after that. Anytime I could use it, like, I was using it. So when we came back home, same thing. I'd be like, oh, wild cannon's showing up late, going back and forth. And we actually had a soccer team, Derek, who was with White House. Yeah. He played on our team, and I was asked to take it over. And I was like, I want to, as the captain. And I was like, with my other buddy, I was like, hey, like, I really don't want to do it. Will you help run it? And he was like, sure. I was like, but there's one catch. And he was like, what? I was like, we got to name our team name Wild Cannons. So our team name used to be Wild Cannons. Then it went to C and CD Law. But we won that year. We won 2 years in a row. Yeah. So that was kind of funny that we were all this mixed match group of people that played on the soccer team. And we went from like the worst team in the league, and we ended up winning. And then eventually made an Instagram account, Wild Cannons. And the idea with this like Wu-Tang is that with all my friends that were riding it in it, that you wouldn't really know who was behind it. So it was this collective group that we wanted to have fun. It was all about just fun and snowboarding and kind of our view of it from this area and our travels. And then the Ghostface is that you wouldn't really like, you wouldn't know the face. Like you wouldn't, there is no face. So anybody like when it's like, you know, like, oh, you wild cannons. It's like, no, it's like we're all wild cannons in our own right. And just having something fun that we could put on there and kind of share with the, you know, the fake world of Instagram. But then not taking it too seriously. As well. Because we're like, we know what our capabilities are. We're not out there, you know, like I said, going the biggest. We're not doing the coolest tricks. But we wanted to build that community and also have that, you know, part of like, yeah, we are out here having fun. These are some areas that we're riding. And in some ways, like, how can we monetize that? So we want to build off that. There's times like when we go to other mountains and say like, hey, can we get, you know, a free lift ticket, couple free lift tickets? We'll trade for some content for you. And that's been,
I love it, man.
That's worked out well for us. So it's like, how do we support our passion? It's expensive. We
Yeah.
want to go to new mountains. Like, why not ask? And it's the whole idea of like the Wayne Gretzky quote. I'm not familiar with that one.
Maybe. I don't know.
It's like
I've heard some of his.
You miss 100%
Oh,
of
yeah.
the shots that you
Everybody
don't take.
knows that one,
So
right?
it's like,
Yeah.
why not? It's like, why not ask? Like, we're putting ourselves out there. And kind of, it went from like, we wanted to stay under the radar from all the writing that we were doing for a lot of it. And then social media kind of blew up a lot of that. And so we're like, well, it's already kind of being blown up, then kind of why not? We joke about like, I a lot of times say bright colors. We're talking about who's normally leading. So normally through like even the backside of Mount Spokane or 49 in these areas, a lot of times I'm out front. So it's always nice to have a bright jacket on. But deep down, I've always liked the black because I don't want to be known. We want to fly under the radar. And we went with orange beanies the first year, which was basically just a beacon for people to see. But it was also kind of put our stamp out there of like, you know, we're supporting local, we're supporting, you know, Pistol Skate Shop with our beanies. And
are those beanies from Pistol then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So specifically, Josh has been more than supportive of me personally, and so that's where that kind of respect and thank you to him was like, yeah, we're gonna rock his gear, because that's there's a lot goes back with Josh. I really like him for what he's done for the snowboarding community, but again, going back to like me personally with boards and. There was one time I broke a board right before I was going to Europe. I didn't have money for it because I was literally going to Europe. And he had a board that I wanted, and I said, hey, like, here's $100. Don't sell it to anybody. And he was just like, here you go, man. Like, it's yours. Pay me when you get back. Like, pay me. Like, don't. I was like, I'll give you $100. He's like, no, just take it. I know you're good for it. And we'd known each other for a while, but I mean, you know, $600-700 board's a lot just to give somebody in trust. He always donated and helped out with Spread the Shred. He always had our backs with that. And so, yeah, much respect to Josh at Pistol for always having our back and hooking us up. And I know there's other, you know, like you work with Shred as they've had new management there. They support us as well. So, you know, we kind of have our go-tos with it within our crew of like where we get stuff. We support them as well. Having our backs. But yeah, the whole idea with that with Volcano was just for fun and to showcase, to then share what some of the local riders are doing as well. So it's not just about us, like resharing if there's these local cats that are doing sick stuff and having some sort of community, because I feel like it's still not there with our snowboarding. Like it is pretty fragmented.
It's fragmented. There's a lot of division in the community for sure that I've like, as I've gotten deeper into it, like certain crews that are like, you know, and I'm just like, oh, well, I'm not in a crew, you know, it's me and my bruh, and like we rock with anybody that rocks with us, you know, and not saying like we don't like want to be in a bigger crew, but it's just like we haven't found that right fit yet, and you know, it's hard when a lot of heads get together, and there's definitely, and Spokane is notorious already for this, but clique-ish mentalities, you know, and so I'm not clique-ish, like, but I am leery about where you're at in your riding skills and you coming to ride with me if you're going to be a hindrance of us just going, you know, like, so I like more, I'm like, can you really ride? You know, I just got to know because I want to ride. I don't want to sacrifice time too much on waiting too much for somebody, or I don't want to be limited in where I want to go, you know, and worry about this person being not able to handle the situation, you know.
Yeah, and that's where it kind of goes back to, I think, riding with your brother when you have those certain friends that you can ride with, because to me it goes back to time. You only have so much time. Like, if this is my outlet, like I need that outlet.
It's
like,
an escape for me.
I need that. I need that mentally.
Yeah.
So if I can be with those like-minded people where we can go knock out, you know, there's days where we're like, hey, you know, like smash and grab. Can you want to go for 2 hours? Like, yeah, dude, let's go. So having someone that you know that you can hammer out 2 runs and bounce early, because you figure Silver, it's an hour drive there ish. It's a 20-minute gondola ride up. You're riding for 2 hours, and then you're coming back that another hour and 20 minutes.
Yeah.
You know, some people are like, that's a waste of time. And I'm like, dude, I need that.
Yeah.
Like, I need those big hammer volcano turns that fill my soul, that regenerate me to be like, all right, well, you know, I'm teaching 6 classes this quarter. That's a lot of time. That means when I get home, I'm going to be sitting in front of a computer grading papers, you know, reading. So it keeps me sane in that sense. And we just built a little community. It's for fun. People seem to enjoy it. We made stickers and kind of laugh about it. We laugh more about it because sometimes we're like, this is so cheesy. Like, people probably are cracking on us. But then at the end of the day, like, we're older, we're having fun. We're turning. We like riding with young cats, you know, and, you know, it's motivating to be like, oh man, like, oh yeah, people are throwing three. Let's throw a few threes back out there, you know, or let's do some of these big step downs. And then at the end of the day, if we can pass that passion on and some of our knowledge on to other people, and you see that look in their eyes of like that you and your brother had, we're like, oh man, like there's a whole new world over here in this little area, then that's like a good feeling too, to be like, all right, we're passing on. I'm passing on, you know, not secrets, but just the passion, I think, to the backcountry or the side country, or just little things that just want to have fun, man. Like, snowboarding should be fun. Yeah,
and that's where I want to be at with it too. You know, I don't want to like discourage people from snowboarding at all. So like when I was talking earlier about like making sure people can ride, it's just like, you know, you got to pay your dues in ways. And so I guess in a lot of ways, like I feel like I paid a lot of dues in snowboarding. And now I'm kind of in a zone where I'm like, I know that I have, but I'm also humble enough to know I got so much more to learn. And I'm willing to learn from others.
That's huge.
And I think somebody needs to be in that kind of way for me. Anybody I really relate to has to be that kind of person. Like knowing and having ambition and confidence and passion for something, but also knowing that I'm not the bee's knees in this also. Like I'm just another person that loves this thing, and you've put the time in, you know, and like that's a big thing for me, is just like how much time do you put into something? Like people see this thing that you do and they get motivation from seeing you do this thing, but they think they can just hop into it with you. And it's like, it doesn't really work that way. You know what I mean? I don't think really with anybody that seeks anything seriously. It's like, you can't just hop into this. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I'm not trying to be a dick, and I'm not trying to be uninviting, you know? And so I get it with crews that are like, you know, we don't really know you, bro. Like, do you ride? Do you not? We got our thing going already. Adding another person in the ride with us means like, are we going to be waiting on you? We're not going to wait for you, just so mind you. And that's always been kind of a mentality that I grew up with, like, because I rode with older fellas all the time, and they're like, we're never waiting for you, man. Like, you better keep up.
Yeah,
and that's how culture was way worse back in the day. And it was to make you tough. Mm-hmm. It wasn't to be, well, it was to make you tough, but also they didn't want to wait. Bottom line, like, we're getting our laps. Like, we're not waiting.
Yeah.
But this is,
So
if you want to make it as a snowboarder, this is what you have to go through.
our joke is
you know.
see you at the lodge at 4.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Initiation.
like we get split
yeah,
up, see you at the lodge at 4.
Yeah, exactly. Same thing. But I, as I've gotten to know you and like what you're doing to try to not trying, but what you're doing to support the snowboard community, I love it, man. And you know, I love just being able to be in the sphere of Wild Cannons now and like getting to ride with you guys. And I'm hoping we can strengthen that bond and do more riding. And anything I can do to support you, T, I will, man. And
That's awesome. Thank you.
yeah, man, I look forward to doing some community service with you, and just really happy to know you, man, and happy to share this time with you today, because I feel like I know you a whole lot better now, and we've actually shared some like real time together.
Yeah.
And that's a big reason why I do this podcast, because once I find somebody I like, I'm like, I want to have them on the pod, because I get to lock them in a room for 2 hours with me and get to know them better,
Yeah, and it just opens up so much more conversation, right, for the next time we talk, because we really haven't had these in-depth talks. It's been real quick, or messages through, whatever, text and Instagram. And so I appreciate you. Thank you for having me on here. Yeah, man, it's cool. I really like what you're doing. Hopefully we can move stuff, forward, and whether it's in my personal life that we're doing something together, or if it's in the snowboard world related. And I have a few things up my sleeve as well, and we can talk about those after. But mine just been time of, putting the time in to do some stuff to give back to the snowboard world more than kind of what we're doing now.
Yeah, man, I'm on that same wave. I'm addicted. Like, I'm like, so
you are.
I'm like trying to figure out all the ways that I can like make snowboarding more a part of my life. Whether that's like you're saying, like doing things to get free gear. I don't need to be sponsored as a pro athlete, but just being a representation regionally of, being able to be, somebody that's intrinsic in the culture and is helping do things in the culture for snowboarding around here regionally. I have a knowledge base of building brands and doing things that I know can apply to the snowboarding world. I just, man, was so lost in my life for such a long time. And I was addicted to snowboarding when I was a kid, but I got into partying, drugs, street life stuff, and it took me away from snowboarding, and I lost so many valuable years that I could have been investing in the snowboarding, and I can't take that back, but I can help somebody that I see in the youth and give them opportunities and guidance in the snowboarding world. Like, bro, don't mess this thing up. Like, I took a course with some young cats at the Schweitzer. They were like 18 years old taking this course. And I'm like, yo, you guys are like, man, I don't need to tell you because you're doing what you need to do, but don't take this for granted, man. Don't mess this up. You guys are great riders. Like, keep with this, man. Don't miss the years that I missed.
Right.
Like, because this is like, you'll never find anything as healing and beautiful as this for people like us. Right. Like, this is it, man. This is my church, Yep. Like, I call 49 the North 49. I call it, what do I call it? The Church of 49 Saints. That's what I say when we're up there. I'm like, yo, on a Sunday, I'm like, yeah, we're at the Church of 49 Saints, man. Like, this is church, yo.
Yeah.
Like, we, so.
You build that. It's really, it touches our soul for it. And I have that same feeling. And, as you get older and you start picking up, like, this is how I want to live my life.
Yeah.
And I want to share to others of, what I did wrong.
Yeah.
And that's okay. And it's easier when there's a relatability. Someone for them to understand that. And yeah, being a turner is totally cool. Riding powder is like totally cool. Like I said, for me, like I was told twice that I'd never play sports.
Yeah.
I'd be able to snowboard again, and you should pick and choose. And I'm like, all right, well, I'm snowboarding during the winter, and I'm gonna play soccer during the summer.
Yeah, and like I just listened to Brian Fox too on the Bomb Hole, and him how he's just converted to take insurance, But the one thing for me and like my new addiction with it is like, it's always been that for me. Like, it's always been the number one thing I love the most. But, you know, life, you try to like, oh, like I need to do this or that, or like this is more important. I can't afford this. Like, I don't care what it costs now. Like, I'm all in. And, you know, there's the other thing of proving like, yo, it doesn't matter how late in life sometimes you are, like you can still get a lot out of life and the things that you love.
Oh.
And like, I'm still really young, but I'm at that age where I'm like, I want to maximize my 30s in snowboarding in a crazy way. I want to take it as far as I can for the rest of my life, you know, because I missed those years and I want to make up for those years. Yeah. And I'm going hard for that reason. Now that I'm like, it's like this snowball effect that's happened. So, you know, having people like you as a motivation and you sharing things and like, and we're sharing it for the fun. Cause like really at the end of the day, like it's all for the fun of it, you know, and I do it for the fun of my enjoyment too, because like, yeah, my little clips or whatever I've been sharing, like, yeah, like compared to the greats, like this is nothing. Like, I know that I'm not trying to be, you know, like this, like, oh dude, I'm a super snowboarder, bro. Like, you know, I'm trying to be like, I love snowboarding and I want to share that. And that's all that it is, you know, like, and it has nothing to do with superiority or anything. It's just like, this is something that I really love in my life. It's something that I love so much. I don't share hardly anything of my life on social media really, but I've been sharing snowboarding because it is that important to me. So, and you know, I feel that same energy from you, man, and your love for it. And so,
yeah, just keep that passion, keep the passion alive for everyone else, and just don't forget to have fun out there. It's at the end of the day, if you're not having fun, man, like it's just not worth it. No, it's not worth the negative energy either.
Yeah. I've been a serious ski bum this year. It's actually been a problem because I've been like, I'm just going snowboarding. But yeah, man, I think we'll close it up, T.
Yeah.
I think we've crossed all the, you know, T's.
I was waiting for it.
Yeah, I was like, well, this is a pun. We've crossed all the T's, man. So,
yeah, no, it's good.
Yeah, man. Thank you, brother.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, I'm Bobby J with City Chapters Podcast, and that's my boy T. Till next time.